on this episode of the WildFed podcast.
The work starts as soon as you pull the trigger. That's just how I grew up.
If I had to retire by mountain brook trout fishing and squirrel hunting, I would be a happy man.
Yeah, and the thing I like about squirrels is they're easy to drag home. And, it's fresh food all the time. If you're living off the land, trapping, I think, is probably the only way you're going to survive because it's so passive.
Rainbows are west coast of the U.S. Browns come from Europe. I wish the fisheries were managed around the native species instead of this thing of like, well, let's dump 10,000 browns in. Like, I just don't really understand that thinking.
But it's all in moderation, whether it's a fishery or whether it's a white-tailed deer. You can't keep taking away the habitat.
There's no inputs, there's only outputs. And anybody with a bank account knows how that works. Like, you got to have some inputs.
As far as I'm concerned, based on my experience, these are the good old days of hunting and fishing.
Episode 52 of the WildFed podcast, Way of the Woodsman with Ed Butler, is brought to you by Surthrival. Head over to surthrival.com where colostrum and digestive bitters are 15% off with the coupon code HEALTHYGUT. Bovine colostrum is one of the supreme gut regenerators. So if you or someone you love suffers from IBS, Crohn's, leaky gut, or any other digestive issues, be sure to look up the research on colostrum. And remember, colostrum has been shown to be 3 times more effective against flu than the flu vaccine, even in high-risk patients. While you're there, check out Surthrival's D3K2. You definitely want to head into this winter with a quality vitamin D3 supplement on hand, and none is better made than Surthrival's. Find it all at surthrival.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Wild Abundance. Have you ever wanted to learn to tan your own deer hides? Buckskin is an incredible, healthy, and natural material, but learning to brain tan isn't easy, not without a mentor. But my friend Natalie Bogwalker has created an incredible online hide tanning course that allows you to learn successfully with beautifully produced video tutorials that walk you through each step of the process. If you don't hunt deer yourself or haven't got a hide on hand, she'll show you where you can acquire a local one, usually for free, or she can even have one sent out to you at her cost. The course includes video tutorials, a course manual, live Q&As, and online community access, and of course, you'll have access to those materials for life. Incredibly, Natalie over at wildabundance.net offers this class with a sliding scale price to ensure that everyone can get access to this fundamental human skill. If you want to be part of her next session, which starts in November, go to wildabundance.net and get on her waiting list, as this year's course is going to sell out fast. Go to wildabundance.net, click on online classes in the navigation bar, and then choose online hide tanning to get on that waiting list. While you're there, you can check out the rest of her incredible content, from wild edibles to homesteading. Again, go to wildabundance.net. Hey, thanks for all those 5-star ratings and the incredible reviews over at iTunes. Listen, you only have to do this once to move the needle on how the show gets put in front of new listeners. You just go over to iTunes and hit the 5-star rating, assuming you think that we warrant it, and then write up a short but honest review, and you're done. You're done. Anytime you hear me asking, you can think to yourself, I'm all set. I've already given a little back to support Daniel and the WildFed team and their mission. It's instant gratification. And please know, we read all those reviews, and they mean a lot to us. I'm Daniel Vitalis, and you're listening to the WildFed podcast, a show about reconnecting with nature through hunting, fishing, foraging, and food. WildFed. Food is all around you. Well, just a quick side note before I introduce today's guest. I watched David Attenborough's latest Netflix documentary this weekend called A Life on Our Planet, which he calls his life's witness statement. Being 93 years old, this is probably his last production and perhaps his most impactful. He spends the first half describing the changes he's personally witnessed to the world's habitat and species over the course of his incredible career. It's a troubling story of biodiversity loss and habitat destruction. But the second half of the film is solution-oriented, and I have to admit I was stunned to see him look directly at the camera and say, we need to rewild the world. I had a podcast for 3 years called Rewild Yourself, so after years of using that language, I was very encouraged to hear it go mainstream. He goes on to show the damaging impacts of large-scale farming and even suggests a return to more sustainable wild protein harvests from the sea. So well done, David Attenborough. It was amazing to see this. I'm very excited to see the idea of rewilding reaching Netflix's audience, and I wouldn't underestimate the impacts this could have on culture moving forward. Today's guest is Ed Butler, aka the Working Class Woodsman. I've been following Ed on social media for a few years, and I've been eager to sit down with him. As someone who started hunting, fishing, and foraging as an adult, I'm always interested to speak to people who've grown up in this lifestyle. Ed's been doing it from the beginning, back when it was cool, then into an era when it wasn't cool anymore, and now into an era where it's becoming cool again. While wild food is in everyone's DNA, you can tell when listening to Ed that these practices were part of his formative relationship with the world in a way that I'll always be a bit of an outsider to. While I've immersed myself in this lifestyle to the point that I can have a conversation like this one, I can't help but notice all the little things that I don't understand or haven't fully embodied. Things that to him aren't second nature, they're his first nature. He's also a lot of fun, so there's a bit more laughter and joking here than usual. I hope you enjoy this conversation, which is me trying to keep up with a guy who spent his lifetime doing the things I'm striving to do as an adult. If you can find yourself in Ed, I highly suggest you do. He's the kind of mentor I'm always suggesting you look for. Someone who knows the woods, waters, and the creatures who live there and cares about all of them in a way that many of us are simply striving for. So thank you, Ed, for an awesome conversation. I wish I'd met you 30 years ago, but at least I can get caught up by watching your YouTube channel. Ed Butler, a.k.a. the Working Class Woodsman.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Man, we first connected on Instagram.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2, maybe even 3.
Maybe possibly.
I feel like at least I was looking at your feed a while ago.
Yep.
I've always felt like you and I have we kind of couldn't look like we're from very different worlds, but what we do, it's like overlaps so much.
Yeah, it's very common.
Yeah.
Intertwines, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been really curious, man, like what's your story? What's the background? And are you originally from New Hampshire?
Yeah, I was born in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, where I live now. I have lived in all sorts of towns around it, but I've worked in Maine a lot over the course of the last 30 years. Yeah. So.
I'm from New Hampshire, originally Dover, and when you're in Maine, it's like you're never fully accepted if you're not from here.
Nope.
But being from New Hampshire is way better than being from Massachusetts or Connecticut. So, people don't get upset at least.
Yeah, I worked in Maine for all those years too, and I think the last week that I worked, I was still from New Hampshire.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
But it was all good.
Yeah. But how is it you have come about doing all the kind of things you do? I see you on there, you're hunting, you're fishing, you're foraging, you're cooking, you're doing all that stuff. What's your background with that?
Essentially, it was my upbringing. Came from a very middle class to slightly less family, and we had, we raised chickens and rabbits, and my grandparents were big time rabbit hunters.
With hounds?
Actually bassets and beagles.
Okay.
And my grandfather actually had probably a couple of the best lines around.
Okay.
And I'm talking back in the 50s.
Right.
And so I grew up basically, in the springtime we caught trout, we ice fished all winter. We raised our own food and stuff.
Right.
But had a lot of rabbits, chickens. That's just how I grew up.
Yeah.
And at the time didn't realize that everyone else didn't live like that, of course. And to go out to a restaurant, I honestly, I don't think I went out to a restaurant until I was probably 16 or 17 years old.
Yeah, okay.
So I had a very secluded, isolated childhood. Right.
Yeah. What keeps you doing it today? Because obviously you have a successful business and you can go buy your food. You don't have to do this. So talk about sort of what is driving you, because as someone who also does it, I know how much work it is on the back end if you want to actually turn it into food yourself.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, you were mentioning before you saw that grinder I had upstairs, that Cabela's grinder, and you're like, I have the same one. You're grinding your own meat, you're butchering your own meat and stuff. So yeah, so
100%.
You know a lot of guys that don't, right?
Oh,
a lot of guys hunt and then they don't want to follow up.
80% of them,
right?
I would say. Even the guys that have hunted as long as I have, they always they'll take it to the butcher and do their thing and go pick it up in plastic bags. And to me, it's a bit, you're missing out. Although it's a lot of work, as you know. Right. I think you're missing out on maybe the best part of it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting you say that. I think, and this has come up on the show before, Grant and I have both experienced that. And by the way, hi, Grant.
Hey, guys.
Sometimes I forget.
I'm here.
He's such a fly on the wall. I think that in my experience, the meat that I've had that's come from butchers tastes like there's guts in it. I always taste that gamey gut flavor
because somebody bad hit a deer and it all got sort of mixed in or something,
Yeah, I think you get a lot of that. And I think some places are probably better than others.
Yeah, it's got to be, right?
But there's no, in like a lot of people, I mean, I'm sure you've been asked this as many times as I have, like, what does bear taste like? How many times have someone asked you that?
Yeah.
And my answer is, it depends how you take care of it.
Yeah.
It's so oily.
if you cool it down quick and take care of it like it's supposed to, but if a guy shoots a bear, throws it in the truck, drives around town, shows his friends, and drops it off at the butcher, good luck.
Yeah.
It's not going to taste. It's going to taste different than one that was taken care of properly.
Especially if you're like, let's say you're hound hunting and you've got a long drag to do, or
which happens a lot.
And the guts are in it for hours.
Yep.
And and like you said, there's a big tendency to want to go get it weighed with the guts in it. They want to show it to a bunch of people first. And man, in and around those joints where all that heat is, and in that belly.
Yeah, you can smell it.
Yeah.
When you're pulling the hide off, it's like, oh man, that should have that should have been spun out a lot quicker. But it's kind of the world we live in, and too. But
and I'm not hating on game butchers. I mean, they play such an important role. But I say that because I sound like I am, and I don't mean to. But I really appreciate what you just said. I think that's some of that work, though it's the hardest part. It's the least fun compared to the hunting. Being in the woods is so fun, but But man, when you get done that work, you feel like you honestly earned that meat.
It's funny because the work starts as soon as you pull the trigger.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Like the adrenaline, and you walk up and you see what you've done, and then it's down to business. And depending on, it might be a 10-minute drag, it might be 2 hours.
Right.
And then you got to get, and then there's always an issue like, do I, if a lot of us usually have to go to work the next day or something. It never really works out where you can wake up the next day and process it or hang it. And, not a lot of people have access to a walk-in cooler to age it properly.
Yeah.
I don't. And with the weather the way it is nowadays, it's always a gamble.
Yeah. So. Grant and I had this issue when we started making the WildFed TV show. Is every episode we get to this point where I'd be writing the voiceover, and we'd always get stuck on this part because I would want to say, the hunt is over, but the work has just begun.
And then wait, that was in the last 3 episodes.
We've done that 3 times. So I have to try to reframe that, but I really agree with what you're saying. You hunt a lot of bear, huh?
Yeah, I do. Probably, and a lot of it works out good for me because of the nature of my business. Like being in the heating business, after Labor Day, things start to pick up. I've always had a hard time deer hunting. I've been doing this 35 years. Heating
your work,
and that's always like the push. It's the 6-7 days a week, the on-call stuff
during deer season.
Right. So deer season's always been tough.
Okay.
So I kind of started bear hunting quite a while ago, but it just works out where like the last week of August you can hunt in Maine. So that's kind of my main week, and then usually by the second week of the 12th. I don't know how many bear I've shot on the 12th of September, but that seems to be my magic day. And it's weird how it is, but it's usually by the 15th or 16th or whatever. Usually that business is done. So then, I put a lot into work and do some squirrel hunting and stuff like that. But by the time deer season rolls around, it's really tough.
Yeah,
it's really tough to get out.
How are you? I'm curious because one of the things about bear hunting is that you typically get your bear in warm weather.
Yes.
And then, I'm curious how you're handling it because that's been, like you said, not having a walk-in. I was just looking at one of those, you can hack those, you get those modules that hack an air conditioner. And so I've been thinking about building myself a cold room just because so much of my animals I'm doing wet in the cooler.
Yeah, what I've got a little system in the back of my van out there. I've got a Yeti 125.
Yeah.
And the first day of bear season, I buy 60 pounds of ice, and that'll hold for 5 or 6 days. And generally, as soon as I get a bear, I stuff it full. I stuff it full of ice. I wrap it up.
You stuff the bear full of ice?
Yep.
Yep. So just pack that cavity full.
Yep. Oh yeah, the whole inner cavity right up into the throat, and then down around the back legs and stuff. Where it stays hot for a long
down
time.
In the pelvis there. Yeah.
Wrap it up in a tarp, or actually, it sounds morbid, but I actually have a containment bag.
Like a body bag?
Yeah. You said it, not me.
I'll show it to you. I like that idea, though.
Yeah,
that's great. A containment bag.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very PC.
It's, so I have it in the van. I'll show it to you later on. It works slick because, you throw the bear in there, which is, they lay out they lay pretty flat.
Yeah.
Stuff it full of ice, zip it up, and you've got a watertight cooler.
That's great.
So that holds it overnight. And then the next day, the game warden comes to do your business. By then, I've got it scun out, and I'm boning it.
Yeah.
So that's my system.
I'm like, something sketchy about getting pulled over in a white box van with a full body bag in the back.
It's come up a couple of times. And I keep it tucked in and down. And if it ever, like, customs in Canada or something, they're going to be like, okay, explain this.
Yeah, why do you have this? And why is there dried blood all over it?
Well, you think about it. And it's really good if you stumble onto a roadkill.
Yeah.
You know,
oh, yeah.
Throw it in the body bag, throw it in, and it keeps your.
Where does one acquire a body bag anyway?
I can get you one. I can get you one.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
I'm putting my transportation tag on the toe.
And actually, if you watch my the video, my tripod video from a couple of years ago, you can see the body. I pull it out of the back. That's a containment bag.
Tripod's the bear?
Yes, the three-legged bear.
Tell this story.
Yep. Oh boy, the whole story, or
I don't know how much you want to tell.
I'll keep talking till you tell me to stop. Yeah. But essentially, I was bear hunting 2 years ago, 2018, up in Bosebuck.
Where's that?
Parmacini Road, Wilson Mills.
Okay.
If you go in Aziscahos, Lake Aziscahos.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a beautiful lake. Bosebuck is a kind of a legendary camp that's out on the backside of the lake. And a guy I know bought it, 13 years ago, and he's run it. And so that's how I ended up there. And we're kind of friends of friends of friends. Like he's buddies with guys that I used to work with and stuff. So I just ended up going up there hunting. But I was way out, actually 23 miles from the hut top.
Okay.
And I was hunting. It was a 6-day hunt. The last night, like 15 minutes before dark, I had been watching a smaller bear come in, and I'd already made up my mind earlier in the week I wasn't going to shoot that small bear, and I'm just watching him.
He was coming each night.
Each night, and one night, the last night, he came in about an hour earlier, and he was just like really snappy and sketchy. And I'm sure you know that when a small bear is acting funny, that means there's a big one out there. So he kind of did his thing, and he took off, and about 15 minutes before dark, tripod comes hopping in. And at the time, I didn't know he only had 3 legs. I just saw him hobbling, and I thought that a friend of mine had shot at a bear a couple of days earlier, and I went, oh, geez, I bet that's the bear he wounded. And it ran through my head. Well, it gets down to business. You take a shot, and it's over. And I walked up, and he was lying on the leg he was missing. And I'm looking, I'm like, that ain't right. And finally, I rolled him over and putting the tag in, and he was missing a leg.
How high up?
Right here.
Wow, so you're
way above the joint.
Midway through his humerus.
Yeah. So they were thinking it was the game warden thought it was probably from a car accident from a very, very young age. They didn't think it was from a trap because it was too high. Or it could have been a hunting accident. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so that's when that was tripod.
Yeah.
He'd been missing that leg for a while, though.
They said, they said he was estimated to be about 16 years old.
Wow. Yeah. Today I did some squirrel hunting this morning, and I shot a squirrel that I couldn't recover, and I couldn't track where he went to. Mm-hmm. So I started thinking about that. Like I was like, I wonder if I hit him in the shoulder, maybe I broke his arm. And then I was thinking, like, what happens to him? I was just thinking about it throughout the day, picturing like him tucked in a hole somewhere, maybe dying, maybe a raccoon finds him in there or something. I was just picturing what I was thinking was like, there's probably no way he can recover from it, But like a bear, like us, that's really remarkable that he could not only recover, but then live. Well,
the thing with tripod is, first of all, he was a very healthy bear.
Yeah.
And he was like,
in other words, he's eating good.
He was in very good health. He also had been shot with a 223 in his back leg, bird shot on his left side.
Oh my goodness!
And a broadhead in his front.
No.
Yeah. Yep.
What a survivor!
Yeah,
oh my goodness!
When we were
shot. First of all, like I really think people need to retire the 223s in the bear hunting world.
Hunting, yeah.
It's just not right.
Unless it was a case where someone was trying to drive it away from the house.
Yeah, I get that. And same with the bird shot, must have been something similar, like get out of my bee's hives or something like that.
But I don't know if you've run into it, but I've had a lot of bear with bird shot on one side of them.
I've never found that.
I have. Probably at least 3.
How many bears do you think you've harvested?
Probably 6.
Okay.
Total.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I think this was my 8th this year. I've never seen any. I don't think I've had any
Yeah, half the bears have had bird shot.
Wow.
It could be where we're hunting too.
Yeah.
Like it was,
Yeah,
and they're all
maybe.
actually my New Hampshire bears.
It's like all the same guy or the same lady
Elmer
going out in the
Fudd guy.
backyard just shooting all the time. Get out of my chicken coop.
Yeah, they and it doesn't deter them. I don't think they
Yeah.
come right back.
Man, they're tough.
They really are. They're a very, and that's kind of the lure, why I have so much respect for them. They're just a incredibly adaptable animal.
Yeah.
And wildlife in general. I mean, even whitetail. I mean, takes a lot to really put them down.
Bears, though, huh? There's something about them. And watching how you can talk about deer hunting in most company, but if you talk about bear hunting, sometimes even amongst other hunters, you get pretty strong responses from people.
It's a hard thing to get your head around. Mm-hmm. I can't really explain it.
Yeah.
Other than the fact I love the meat, I think it is necessary.
You can't explain why it bothers people or why you like to do it.
But, well, I can explain why it bothers people because, first of all, they're looking at you with both eyes.
Right.
And that in itself there's some, mystical stuff with that. But
quite beautiful eyes, too. I mean.
Oh, and when you see one and it sounds, this is kind of lopsided talking like I am because I hunt them, but there's nothing more beautiful or majestic than a bear in the woods.
Yeah.
And I often think they don't even they look out of place.
Like they don't belong
there.
Yeah.
Because they just appear out of nowhere and it's just dark, the blackest black creature.
I always say it's like somebody cut a hole out of reality and you're just looking through into infinite space or something. They're so black. And it's strange because if I wore black in the woods, you'd find me pretty easy. You know what I mean? It's like their camouflaging is
and as quiet as they are.
Unbelievable, right?
I mean, because how many times have you seen, or heard, no, I should say, you haven't heard a bear coming. All of a sudden, there he is, 30 yards out. It's like, there's no way you shouldn't have seen him coming or heard him, but they just appear.
Yeah, I don't know that I've really ever, I mean, on a stand over baits or something, I don't think I've ever actually heard one. Of course, I have with dogs, as they crash through stuff running, but I mean, I don't think I've really ever even heard them make a sound.
I've heard them many times because I've hunted a lot with other people and not shot. I've passed on many bear. But so in doing that, you see a lot and you observe. The best experience I ever had was 5 years ago, something like that. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a big bear or a bigger bear just walk at a very fast pace off to the right, and I was turned around, and then I caught a glimpse of a small bear, like a little, literally a cub. Then the mother came out behind him, and she was foraging through the logs and stuff, ripping up logs, and the little cub was running up and down the logs, just blatting like blah.
Yeah.
It was, and this went on for like 45 minutes.
Oh, cool.
So I sat there, and the big bear never came back. I'm assuming that might have been either a male or another female, but it was quite a thing to watch. Yeah.
Man, I'd like to. So you've observed from the stand or something with other people?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to do that actually.
And I've done a lot of, I've filmed a lot of stuff for people.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually filming. I love to film, but I've learned the hard way. It doesn't go hand in hand. If you want to go out and have a successful hunt, leave the camera in.
Right.
And like a lot of times I'll take the camera out and talk or whatever, but if I've made up my mind I'm not going to shoot a particular bear, I'll film it.
Yeah.
I have done that in the past, I should. Same with deer. But a couple of years ago, I had a really bad, it was after I shot tripod, I had a really rough time getting anything done right. Like I lost another bear after that.
Oh,
in
that's
New Hampshire.
hard, huh?
It was awful, yeah.
Yeah.
And I still deal with it every day, but I should say every time I go hunting. But then I lost a 6-pointer down in North Carolina out in the swamp. Same year? 2 weeks later.
Oh, man.
So I kind of come back, driving home from North Carolina, it's like, man, you really got to rethink what you're doing here. This is, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just, I can't. And then you go out almost afraid to pull the trigger.
Right, right. What do you think happened with these animals?
Well, I think the first one, I hit too far in the front. I hit him it was broadside, and I hunt with a 300 Win Mag.
It's got a punch.
Okay, but a 200-pound bear, it's not, it should have done the job, but I think what I did was I hit him too far forward, and as soon as I hit him, you've seen how they react. Yeah. And I thought he was done. In hindsight, I should have put another one into him, but he got up and started spinning around backwards, and I can see I opened up his whole front leg. Oh. And then he just took off. And I'm like, this can't be real. So I tracked him, that night and then the next day, and we just could not find him. Never did find him. Yeah.
He's another tripod now.
Well, I would like, I don't know if I want to think that or not, but I'd rather have him survive it than not. But to see how that opened him up, I just can't.
Yeah.
But he just wouldn't go down.
Yeah.
You know, he probably lost more blood than any other animal I'd ever tracked.
Wow. So it was like probably an arterial hit then.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
But it didn't hit the lungs.
Yeah.
And if you don't hit the lungs,
yeah,
you know, and they don't bleed out quick enough, you'll never find them.
Right. Because they don't run too far if you hit them in the lungs, huh?
Oh no,
I haven't seen it go more than 60 yards or something.
No, that's a good estimate, because the adrenaline will take them that far, and then once
it's just so much body mass to move, you know.
And with them, you know, once they get on that, you know, once that adrenaline takes over, until their oxygen is depleted from the brain and their nervous system shuts down, they just keep running.
Yeah.
But that's what shuts them off.
Right.
But they can a bear can cover 80 yards in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they're
how
incredible.
fast they run. But with the deer, I think what I did was I hit it too high, and it went right over the lungs and through because.
Oh yeah.
And he ran out into the swamp and actually I think sunk.
Oh, okay.
It was a 6-pointer.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just a bad. It wasn't I mean, you see a deer at 20, 30 yards broadside, you take the shot, right? Well, you don't think that it's going to run into the swamp and sink.
Right.
And we think that's what happened.
I lost a bear in North Carolina to sinking to the bottom of a river, and we brought out because I had seen one in the water get shot the day before, and he floated, and I was like, oh, they float. Good to know. But if you shut off their central nervous system, they don't float. That one, the day before that somebody had shot, had still, I think, air in its lungs. He was buoyant. Mm-hmm. Anyway, my bear went to the bottom of a river. Man, I hate this story. It's like, it plagues me, you know. But we actually got the fire department let us use their dragnet, and we looked for hours. I mean, probing. I tried to dive down. There was no visibility. We dragged and dragged.
You're in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost him.
That,
you know?
That's saying something right there, because I know what that water's like down there. Mm-hmm. Just to dive into that is...
Well, I couldn't see anything. Yeah, there was no visibility. But anyway, yeah, I kind of know that feeling, and it's not a good feeling. It makes you rethink it and replay it a lot, right? Like, if you could do it again.
Well, like with me, I went through a spell where I just I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to if I'm ever going to get it right again, you know, and then now it's a mental
like
thing.
Like a bad luck spell kind of.
Yeah, and then a couple other things in life went, you know, bad and blah, blah, blah. And it all kind of just went into a spiral. And then 2 years later, it's like everything's fine.
Feeling better.
And since I actually donated tripod to the Vermont History Museum.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So he's mounted there.
Yeah, it's a half mount to accentuate his missing leg.
Cool.
And I got it back from the taxidermist, and I hung it up on the wall beside a couple of my other ones, and I'm like, it just doesn't look right there. Mm-hmm. So I got a hold of a buddy that works there. It's the Vermont History of Museum of Natural History.
Yeah.
So it is, right on Hogback Mountain. Amazing place.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing place. So he's got a place down there, and I just think that's where he belongs.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's neat.
Yeah.
What else, man? What's your year look like overall, like as a sort of a snapshot calendarically of how you are interacting with the outdoors?
In this year in retrospect, or
I guess like in general, like what's your sort of like basic year like
this year? This year's been very odd.
Right. Yeah. You're not the first to say that.
For multiple reasons. Last year, I took a road trip across country and I hit about 30 states.
Okay. I saw you fishing in some places out west, right?
Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado. Did I fish Montana? Colorado mostly, Eagle River. That was so much fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, different world out there. But but typically, let's say this was a normal year, whatever that is. It starts off January 1st. You know, you can ice fish on Lake Winnipesaukee. So January and February is pretty much ice fishing.
Yeah. Describe that lake to people who don't. You know, a lot of people aren't from, a lot of people New England or New Hampshire and Maine might as well be Alaska to some people. You know, like they've never been up here. So Winnipesaukee is a pretty big and famous lake if you're from up here. But
it still amazes me why it's so famous. But other than the fact Wolfboro is the oldest summer resort in America, maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
But it's also a victim of overdevelopment in the last 20 or 30 years. Now what used to be, like when I was a kid, let's say back in the 60s, 70s, they had camps, you know, houses, but camps.
God, you've seen it change.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was.
It was just camps around there.
For the most part. I mean, there was some nice houses, but now they're mega mansions.
Yeah.
And we're talking, 26,000 heated square feet, 9 bathrooms.
Wow.
Helicopter pads.
Yeah. Right.
Where does it stop?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, And that's why they put a speed limit on that lake years ago, was because of those cigarette boats. People were coming up with cigarette boats. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's not a... Anyway, so it gets overused. It's still a great lake, and actually right now the salmon fishing, it's the good old days as far as fishing goes, because the salmon are fat and healthy.
Oh, okay.
Because we've got such a great smelt population.
Was there a natural landlocked population, or were they stocked there?
It's those fish actually. It's interesting. They never naturally migrated to Winnipesaukee.
Okay.
When they came up from the ocean, they went up the Merrimack, if you're familiar with that, up through Lowell and up through New Hampshire. And when they got to that fork, they went up to Pemigewasset. And they never came.
No way.
Yep. They never came into Winnipesaukee.
That's interesting.
The shad did.
Yeah?
Yeah, the shad, that's where Weir's got its name.
Okay.
The Weirs.
The Weirs Beach.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the Native Americans
Had
used
weirs
to...
there.
Yep. They used to harvest shad.
Man, we were just down... I want to get back to Winnipesaukee here, but
Sure.
I just want to give this little sidebar. I'm very interested in fishing when it's not angling. There's something about that fascinates me, because angling has become so ubiquitous. So whenever somebody's fishing with a spear or a net or a weir or anything like that, I find it interesting. I want to know more about it. So Grant and I were just down we were on the Delaware River in New York, and this guy who runs this gigantic eel weir. I mean, he's cutting off it's the east branch of the Delaware, right?
I believe so.
He's cutting off almost the entire river. He leaves about 10 feet on the far end for the drift boats to get through. But otherwise, he has built a stone weir. He maintains some permit to do this. He's probably the last one they'll give a permit to. Like, he had a story about when he went to buy his license this year, they accidentally ripped his check up, and he almost didn't get his license again. But anyway, he builds it every year, reconstructs it after the snow and after the ice, and it funnels down. I'll show you pictures later, all the way down to like a wooden box that he's constructed where he catches all the eels, and it's like 2 nights of the year where he catches almost all his eels. He's got a little smokehouse at his place where he smokes them, and people come from all over the world. He's done a lot of TV. He's
I'd never heard that.
Yeah, he's been on. You ever see that show Filthy Riches on Nat Geo?
I know of it.
He's in that.
No kidding.
He did 17 episodes of it, and this eel weir it's just the scale of it is really remarkable, because it's, what do you think, Grant? It's about 60 yards across.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And it's probably 100 yards long down from, the V of it.
He's raising up the river 2 feet, I think.
Yeah,
he said.
the river comes up 2 feet inside
Seriously?
his weir. It's remarkable. But anyway, I had never seen a weir personally, except in old pictures. So getting to see this was like,
and an eel
the
weir.
scale of it.
Yeah.
Because you know how they're catadromous, so they once a year they migrate down back into the ocean and head down to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So on those nights they come down, he's catching them all.
That in itself is amazing.
It's incredible.
What you just said. Like, you think about an eel in Danhole Pond.
Yeah.
It's from the Sea of Sargasso.
It's unbelievable, right? The whole thing, and the way that now Maine has got that fishery for the glass eels, which, I mean, I know there's people who are doing really well as a result of it, but that needs to be either clamped down or something, because eels are becoming more endangered now.
Oh, yeah.
And they're acting like it has nothing to do with the fact that they're taking all the baby eels who hit the coastline here,
Well, you think about how much harder it is now for them to get there.
Yeah,
with the dams and
right.
I mean, it's probably easier for eels than it is fish,
because they can kind of climb, right? They sort of slither up.
Yeah, they're a snake. They can pretty much get through a lot that like fish can't.
Right.
So, but still, I mean, it's got to be detrimental to their survival.
Yeah.
So it's funny, because when you hear people talk about how different states do different things and the interest and the money that's put into certain projects, it's like, man, how does all that come about? Like, trying to figure out why the salmon don't come back.
Right.
They'll put in like 80,000 smolt and 80 come back. And stuff.
Right.
It's like, there's a lot of theories.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Well, I think that
once things hit the ocean, we lose the ability to know even what's going on anymore. Right? It's really hard to track. They've never seen the eels mating down there. They don't really know. They know they come from Sargasso just because that's where you find the concentration of the larva. But it's not like they don't really know what's going on down there. They go down there, they never come back, and then babies start showing up on the coastline.
Well, they gotta be doing something right.
But anyway, so you were saying Weir got its name from the weirs. What were they catching there, do you think? Salmon? Weir's Beach?
Oh no, shad.
It was shad.
Oh, there was shad because the salmon never came.
Okay.
But
all the way down at the beach, I'm saying.
Yeah, it was somewhere. Oh, how did they do that? Where the river comes up, which is now Paugus Bay, I guess, if I'm getting my bearings straight. But that was the river, and they would migrate into Lake Winnipesaukee, and there was a fishery. That's how crazy it was. Back at one time, there was a fishery over by, I think it was Guilford, that they they would catch fish, put them on a train, and ship them to Boston.
Oh wow!
That's how many shad there were.
Really?
Tinker shad.
Wow.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
And now I don't know. I don't think a shad can make it past Lowell, Mass.
Right. Oh man, these stories are hard to hear.
It's heartbreaking.
We were recently up on Little Saddleback Junior, with a conservation group there whose goal is to preserve a bunch of land that looks like open wild land. But it's all private, and obviously it is at risk for development. But they were telling us that the salmon used to make it up here, and it's like we were thinking about the salmon would bring all those nutrients, all that nitrogen from the sea, and it'd get deposited there and go into the ecosystem, and that was like a fertilizer. But now that's not happening, and there's logging, so the nutrients get taken off, and then it gets washed down, but nothing's coming back. There's no inputs, there's only outputs, and anybody with a bank account knows how that works. Like, you've got to have some inputs.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you hate to blame, but, you think of what the timber industry did to the rivers, back in the 1800s.
A lot of people forgot about that, but...
Well, I mean, when you look
oxygen.
Look at the old pictures, and there's a foot of like just tree bark floating. You can't even see the water.
Yeah.
And I mean that did irreversible damage.
Yeah, here in town, we're surrounded by. I mean, they call this the Lakes region of Maine, but most of these lakes aren't man-made. They all have locks. They built these for the transportation of logs. I mean, they were rivers.
Logs and woolen mills, and
Yeah.
I mean they use the energy.
Yeah.
But in doing that, they altered. The natural. I would love to go back like 500 years and just to see what it was really like.
I'll take a one-way ticket.
Yeah. If that was the price. Yeah. You got to carve yourself a home.
Yeah. It's like, all right, I'll do it. But really, I mean, the challenge is just like, here we are sitting under these lights. I can complain all day about hydroelectric, but it's like, what is the alternative? It's like hydroelectric. We can burn garbage, right? We can burn coal, or we can do nuclear, or we can go with these renewables, which are like, how are you getting those materials exactly? So it's like, it's a tough scenario.
That's why I struggle with solar a little bit for that reason.
Yeah.
The evils of making it.
Yeah.
It's like there's a price to pay for all of it. But you're right. I mean, and I think we forget that humans are nature, too.
Yeah, exactly.
We just have cognitive thinking.
Yeah.
And this is what we do.
Yeah, this is what we do. Exactly.
Well, it's survival. Right now we're surviving because it's, 68 degrees and we're hydrated. I mean, that's just how we survive.
Right.
But, animals can't do that.
Yeah.
They have to adapt to the climate.
But, man, the effects we're having on our own ecosystems where it's, the idea that, like, I saw an article yesterday about the seal population down at the coast here, where it's it was about the complaints of the fishermen because of the seals. The seal population's gotten so big because of, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and you can't kill any seals, but the seals are still eating and they're growing, and now we got the great whites coming in, and, this woman died this year here in Maine. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
a great white, which, they're attracted by the seals. Anyway, I'm thinking about the seals, and it's like, well, what if they opened up to a harvest on seals? And then it's like, well, the seals are going to be toxic for so long because they're so fat and they got so much PCB built up in them. And I'm just thinking about that thing where in order for a short-term comfort, you poison something for 100 generations out.
Yep.
We've done so much of that now.
That's a good way of putting it.
Well, it's just, it sucks that you're comfortable for 20 years, and so nobody can be comfortable for 2,000 years, and it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, so Winnipesaukee,
we're digressing.
What's the fishery there now what are you fishing for in the ice?
Well, Winnie, white perch is probably my target.
Yeah,
fish.
They're delicious fish, huh?
Oh yeah. You've had them.
Yeah,
obviously.
And I mean they are like closely related to striped bass, which I like to eat.
It's funny because a white perch is a bass,
right?
And a largemouth is a perch.
It's a perch.
Oh my
It's so
God,
weird.
I'm never gonna get how they name fish.
So it's every
very
time
arbitrary.
when I see those charts, I'm like, wait a minute, what? But but a largie is a largie and a perch, but a white perch is a bass. But Very good eating.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And I eat, and I get a lot of trouble for this. Oh, it's too many. Can't eat those. They're loaded with mercury. Yeah. And I'm like, compared to Chicken McNuggets. I mean, you go into a Little Debbie snacks. I mean, it's like I'll take my chances with white perch.
Yeah.
And I've been eating them for my whole life, and I'm not glowing.
Yeah.
I have cut back a little bit, but I still put away probably a couple hundred a year.
Yeah,
easy,
do you?
Easy.
Yeah.
Well, we limit every time we go fishing.
Right.
25.
Do you have a limit on them?
25.
I don't think we have a limit on them here.
In Maine?
Yeah, I don't think we do.
Oh, I don't.
I'll revisit that.
We should know that. Maine guides.
Yeah. Are you a Maine guide?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not a fishing guide.
Well, I'm
what categories you in?
Just recreation.
Rec, yeah.
Registered. I'm not practicing.
Yeah.
I like to throw that out there.
Same. I'm the same.
But anyway, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of credential or whatever, I guess. But white perch.
You cut back on those on purpose, or just you don't fish as much?
Oh, I fish as much.
Neighbor Will says the same thing. His wife doesn't love him fishing those because he likes to eat them so much, and she's always concerned about that.
Well, and the worst of it is back before I had 3.5 years ago, I had a whole lifestyle change where I went like total paleo.
Oh, cool.
For 3 years.
No kidding.
And which meant no dairy, no pasta, no bread, blah 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 for like 3 years. So I used to deep fry everything.
Oh yeah. Right.
I mean, I'd put away in my heyday. I was eating like 3 pounds of bacon a week. So fiddleheads, white perch, catfish.
Were you bigger?
I was 232.
What do you
I'm
know?
185.
Yeah.
But it was my numbers were like.
I was cutting bears. You're like, oh, that's what it looks like under the skin.
My doctor said I was in the elite with my triglycerides, and it was time for a change. So I kind of
Cool.
Just a complete change in lifestyle.
Nice.
But so I stopped deep frying. So now I cook them in coconut oil. I use ghee a lot.
Ghee's nice
Love
for
it.
fish. Yeah.
Love it. I like coconut oil because you can cook at a high temperature.
Yeah.
So that's how I cook my perch now. But I'm eating a lot more trout.
Yeah.
I probably eat 75 to 100 trout a year. Mm-hmm. So that takes
brook trout, or you fish all kinds. Yeah.
Yep.
And they're amazing.
Rainbow one. There's nothing.
What would you, if you could have them any size? Like, what's your size of brook trout you'd like to eat?
6 inches.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
it's just so good like that. You just eat the bones of them like that too. Sometimes I'll just.
Well, it's like, do you smelt? Do you smelt it?
A little bit. I mostly smelt through the ice. I don't dip net that much.
Yeah. I love smelt.
Yeah.
I absolutely love smelt.
Do you do them through the ice, or? And just for the listener, there's sea run smelt, and then there's smelt that are landlocked.
New Hampshire, 20-something years ago, decided, okay, we got to protect our smelt population, and they shut down just about every place with the exception of 8 lakes that you can actually dip.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I'll tell you,
guys would hammer them, huh?
dipping smelt was tradition, and it's kind of getting back to where you asked me about, the year in the life of what we do. But so when the ice fishing's over, then we're looking forward to smelting.
Yeah.
And it used to be Willie Brook, because you can't even smelt there now. But they would have, like, the Lions Club would have a booth set up selling coffee and subs, and literally there would be one guy on the road and saying, okay, dip, and then everybody dipped simultaneously.
He'd see him coming in, you mean?
Yeah. He was like
now spotter plane.
Yeah. And that's how it was. And it was an event. Everyone did it.
Yeah.
And I've written some funny, humorous stories about that in a combination of New Hampshire cider. I made up this, like, kind of fictitious character, but it isn't, sort of thing. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But no, smelting was huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. We everyone did it. It was about 2 to 3 weeks out of the year, and then that was kind of like the rites of spring.
Did they have limits back then?
It didn't really matter.
Didn't matter, right? Yeah.
Well, it was so bad that there were guys coming home with 5-gallon buckets.
Wow.
And it was frowned upon.
Okay.
But then it got to the point where, okay, guys, and then they just said, all right, we're shutting you down. And
largely because they are the underlying food for so many
It's a
other
huge
species.
food population, and it's very important. Mm-hmm. Very important that we don't decimate the population. But if you could, I've yet to meet a biologist or anyone that could give me a true explanation of why smelt populations rise and fall. No one really knows.
Okay.
There's a lot of theories, but no one can really answer you straight.
Yeah.
But of course, dipping 5-gallon buckets doesn't help.
Right.
But
do you guys have a sea run smelt fishery in New Hampshire?
No, I go to Kennebec.
Okay, yeah, same.
Once a week.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah, once a week?
Once a week. We have Thursday nights, me and my friend Big
That's
Al.
smart to average it out like that, because you got nights that suck and nights that are incredible, right?
Yep. Well, we've been doing, in the last three
What
years,
camp do you go to?
mostly Bakers.
Okay.
And Jack Eddy.
Yeah, I know Jack Eddy,
Yeah. I hope I said that right. Because I never.
think that's right.
Is it Jack Eddy?
I'm not sure.
Because me and Al have a
that what you're
running
thinking?
joke every time he goes, "Do you want to go to the other place?" I go, "Oh, you mean Charles Eddy?" He goes, "No, it's Jack Eddy." I think it's Jack Eddy.
I think it is too.
But
Eddie for sure.
It's Eddy for sure. I like that place, and I like the way they do their camps because they have 2 sets of camps
Right.
for incoming and outgoing.
Yeah, that is nice.
Baker's is we've had phenomenal success at Baker's. And
What are you fishing with? Because you
Sabiki.
get in there and you're using sabikis. I've never done that, and this year I heard guys next to me. They're like, "Got a triple!" I was like,
Makes
"Those
sense.
They're
I've
using
caught-
sabikis." Like I was like, "Oh, I never thought of that."
I've caught 4.
Do you bait them, or you just use the little fly that's on there?
bloodworms.
Yeah, so you still bait them. You keep the little flies on the sabikis.
You know what a sabiki rig is,
yeah.
okay? You take your
Can
little.
you explain for the listener what we're
Well,
talking
it's a kind of like a mackerel tree, and in a sense that you've got it's kind of an art to actually get it in the water without getting snagged.
about? Yeah.
But you put like a 1 ounce weight on the bottom, and you've got about a 5-foot string, and about every foot there's a hook
Coming off usually about
coming off like
8, 9
6,
inches,
8,
something,
9 inches maybe, and so you've got a tree, if you will, of fish hooks, 6, and you lower it to the bottom, crank it up about a foot, and
Just jig it.
well, I let it sit. I have a noodle rod, put it on the edge of the bucket, and I wait for it to just do this,
Okay.
and then bring them up.
Is it like mackerels where you get one on and then you get a bunch on because they all see that movement?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got
I
a
can't
picture
believe
of
I've
me.
never done this, because you get there and just for the listener, you come into these little shacks.
Yep.
Usually got like a little wood stove and some wood, and
Oh, it's so much fun.
it's awesome. I mean, it's just a great thing. Even when you're not catching, it's a fun thing to be out there doing, you know. But anyway, so you rent this little shack that's on a river, and you rent it for a tide. So if you come in at low tide, you leave 6 feet higher than you came in or whatever. And they've cut holes on either end of the shack, and those lines that they have pre-positioned, I mean, the hooks are so rotted out. The lines are so
rusty.
rotted out. It took us a couple years to figure out, like, oh, you need to bring your own stuff. Like, how does this...
We learned
so
the hard-
I
we
used to
learned the
tie
hard
all
way.
my own hooks on, and I'd leave them for the next people
Yeah.
who came, but the sabiki seems like the way to do it.
We learned the hard way, and then finally one night I got brave, and because the smelt fishermen are a different kind of different breed of guys, and I said, okay, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
And one guy said, "Oh, come on, I'll show you."
Because you're
And-
hearing them over there slaying them, and you're sitting there with nothing
3
on.
fish.
Yeah.
and they got half a gallon. I'm like, what? And so anyway, we figured it out, and now it's like we get our limit just about every time.
Oh, that's great.
But it's the hardest thing is just keeping those hooks from getting tangled.
Yeah.
So when I
How
bring,
many lines would you run, and how far apart are they?
I only run 1 rod.
Really?
Yeah. One
Okay,
rod. That's
man.
enough for me.
I can't wait for this.
How many lines are usually in the water when you're just doing those single lines?
8 on each
Oh,
side.
at least.
Yeah.
Maybe I've seen like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you think about it. If you had, that must be a tangled mess.
Down below, yeah.
I mean, if you've got like eight lines down and you get 3 fish on, they got to get tangled.
yeah.
And then you're going to tangle the other ones trying to get it up.
I've for sure spent some time
Yeah.
untangling.
Oh, I've done it too.
Yeah.
But
So rainbow smelt, so it's just people know we're talking about rainbow smelt, and then when they're landlocked, they're a big one's like a French fry, and then when you're
a pin smelt.
yeah, and then is that what you call them?
Pin smelts.
I haven't heard that.
Yep.
And then on the ocean run smelt, a big one's a foot long.
Oh God, yeah.
You know?
We've got many a foot long.
Which do you prefer to eat?
I
was thinking when you said guys are coming home with 5-gallon bucket of dip netted smelts, that's a lot of. Are they cleaning each one of those?
Did I say that? No. Yes. No. They heads and all. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So they
Yeah,
cook them guts in.
Yeah, I mean, that was back in the old days, and it wasn't legal.
Right.
But I mean, it was.
I'm just wondering, were they cleaning through those, or they were just
No,
cooking
they
them
would
whole?
heads and all.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, they just
Guts
fry
and
them right
all,
up,
too.
guts and all. Yep, the pin smelts, but you're eating a fish that may be 3 inches long.
Yeah.
When they get up to 4 or 5 or 6 inches, I just cut the heads off.
Yeah.
Eat bones and all. Even the rainbow smelts. The rainbow smelt that are 12 inches long, I eat the bones and all,
Okay.
and they chomp right up.
I'm always peeling out that little skeleton.
I
How
never
are you
do.
cooking them?
Coconut oil and my camp salt, which is basically an amalgamation of everything that's bad for you. Salt, garlic powder, and pepper. And
Doesn't sound
great
bad
to
for
me.
you.
well, I mean, salt's the first ingredient in anything
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But that's how I do it, and I haven't deep fried fish in 3.5 years,
Oh yeah.
but I used to deep fry them.
Okay.
You're like in recovery.
Yeah, totally right. He's got a keychain. 3 years.
Yeah. I have a photo album of some of my bacon meatloafs that I pull out every once in a while.
Salivating.
It's like, these are the good old days.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
But yeah.
So which smelt would you prefer to eat? Like a sea run smelt or a
in all honesty, I probably the sea run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I love them. And I love the pins, but I'll tell you, after going to Kennebuck, and we love, it's like every Thursday night we drive up there. It's about a 2-hour ride.
Yeah.
And we get home at like 2 in the morning, but it's worth it.
We'll get right back to the conversation in a moment, but first, this episode's brought to you by WildFoodWarehouse.com. Wild Food Warehouse carries North America's original staple grain, hand-harvested wild rice from the Great Lakes. Their entire process from harvesting by canoe to parching over a wood fire to the final winnowing all takes place right there in Minnesota. Wild Food Warehouse pays fair wages to local foragers who operate within Minnesota's strict wild rice harvesting laws. Don't be fooled by store-bought wild rice or the stuff served in most restaurants. They call it wild, but in reality, it's paddy-grown. Those stiff and hard-to-cook grains resemble the real thing in name only. Remember, real wild rice cooks up soft and smooth, tastes amazing, and is packed with nutrition not found in cultivated grains. One of my favorite ways to eat wild rice is as a tabbouleh salad. I cook the wild rice, cool it under cold water in a colander, and then add lots of lemon juice, salt, olive oil, parsley, crushed garlic, chopped tomatoes, and red onions. As it sits, it cooks in the lemon juice and becomes one of the most delicious and digestible meals you've ever had. In fact, unlike tabbouleh made with cultivated grains, it's so digestible I can eat a gluttonous amount of it and yet never seem to get full. Head over to wildfoodwarehouse.com to get authentic, hand-harvested wild rice. Price breaks start at £5, and the coupon code WildFed gets you 10% off your order. Again, that's wildfoodwarehouse.com. Now, back to the show.
When you're salmon fishing, are you using smelts?
No, I used to. I use tube jigs and flies.
But through the ice.
Oh, through the ice? Well, we can't keep salmon in New Hampshire.
Oh, okay.
You catch them accidentally.
Yeah.
As the quote-unquote immediate release.
Yeah.
That's the law.
Oh, okay.
So, no, I know Maine you can.
You gotta swing over here sometime.
I know.
In the winter we'll go because
we have no idea.
We can keep salmon here and they're nice. They're nice.
Well, up at the Ziskahos this year, when I was bear hunting, I
take as many as you want, right?
Caught some salmon. Yeah, they beg you to keep them.
Yeah.
Anything under 15 inches, you can fill the boat.
Neighbor Will loves sending pictures around when he goes to his Ziskahos because it looks like he's poaching, which he thinks is really funny. Yeah. But he's always coming back with a cooler just loaded with him.
It's you familiar with Rangeley?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to Rangeley, Errol, New Hampshire, so you go up 16. Before you get in, there's a little town called Wilson Mills, a Wentworth location, that area. The Parmacini Road is, Ziskahos actually comes out on 16, but if you go up Parmacini Road to get to Bosebuck, because that's another deal, but that's where Ziskahos is.
Okay.
But Bosebuck is, like I say, on the very end of the lake. But you can launch a boat pretty much right off of 16.
Wow.
Right by the dam, you know what I mean? And the salmon fishing is phenomenal. Just unbelievable up there. I was beside myself.
Yeah.
And tons of eagles.
Yeah.
Yeah, tons of eagles.
Yeah. Do you guys have alewives that run?
No. In New Hampshire?
Yeah.
No.
We've been going the last couple of years to dip net alewives in the spring, and so come along next time if you'd like.
Is that a type of shad?
What's that?
Are alewives a type of shad?
They're all herring. They're all herring.
Yeah.
We've got a few different locations, and there's actually like a map that Maine has out that's like all the spots. Not really for dip netters as much as it's for people who want to go observe, but they kind of by default tell you it's like called the Alewife Trail or something.
Yep.
So we've got a few different spots that we've been going to, but because like my buddy Arthur will be dip netting smelt, and I find that time of year I'd rather go after the alewives.
So fun.
I've never eaten one.
It's hard.
Yeah.
They're so bony.
Or is it?
I've got a can. I'll crack a can before you go today, because that's the only way. You pressure can them, you get rid of the bones.
Yep.
And actually, I do have some. I still have one package of smoked ones that I did, but the bones. I mean, it's just such a tangled network of.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah,
I've never had.
They're incredible.
But the pressure canning is the way, I think.
Yeah, that's the way, and it's a fun fishery, man. It's just cool. Lots of eagles, lots of osprey. I mean, just all kinds of birds out.
Oh yeah,
picking them off.
The Ziskahos is just a phenomenal Great place. I love it up there.
It's been cool to watch eagles come back in our lifetime,
Yeah.
huh?
Oh, God, yeah. And it really 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, because I remember 20 years ago, you had to go like to Umbagog to see an eagle. And now it's like we have them on every lake.
Yeah, right over here.
Every lake in New Hampshire, pretty much, have eagles. I love it. But speaking of bony fish, that's kind of a nice segue back into our year in the life. Do you the sucker run?
Yeah, I love doing suckers.
Okay, yeah.
I love it.
That's right after smelting.
Yeah, and that's a fun one too, man. That's one that it took me a couple of years to dial in a way to work with them. So I'd be curious to hear what you do with them.
Well, we used to use them when my grandma, because I get to credit my grandmother for pretty much what I know at a young age as far as hunting and fishing. But she used to take us out, and we used to get hundreds of suckers for the garden.
Cool.
To fertilize.
Did you put them in whole, or did you cut them up?
We put them in whole.
That's
I never
awesome.
remember cutting them up.
Throughout the garden?
Yeah, like yeah, I can remember clearly just taking two, tail to nose to tail around like a plant and just burying it. And that's what I
How
don't know
deep
if that's
you
right.
burying it?
A couple inches, not much. Yeah,
Raccoons don't come tear that up or anything?
never had a problem. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's how we did
just
it.
how you guys did it, yeah. I learned it from my neighbor my neighbor's about Grant's age, but boy, does he seem old-timey. He wears the old-timey wool.
35. 10
the old
years
wool
younger than
vest
you.
with the little pocket.
He's 10 years younger than Daniel, but you
Talks
swear
to
he's
me
old.
like talks to me like he's my senior, But anyway, he's pretty brushed up on all this old-timey kind of skills, and so he was teaching me because he does it for his tomato garden. But I was like, I want to eat these fish, So
I love eating them.
how do you prepare them?
Pretty much. There's a couple different ways you can make fish cakes out of them.
Yeah.
Like you would pickerel, a chain pickerel. Have you ever done that?
I've never made. I've never done that with chain pickerel, but
Yeah, you make little fish cakes. It's really
you
good.
put them through a grinder or something.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Catching all the bones in the grinder.
Yep. And but pressure canning does get rid of the bones if you do suckers. But with suckers, I literally clean them out and I'll fillet them. Kind of fillet them.
Yeah.
You get those Y bones that are just impossible. But I kind of deal with it. But I just fry it up and I do like fish sandwiches with mayonnaise or olive oil mayonnaise. But I love it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just a fun fishery, especially after the winter. Getting in there. So you're using a spear gig.
I have, yeah.
How else do you do it? Do you dip net them?
Dip net with my like just a fishing net.
Yeah.
What I do is I'll walk up the river and I'll pin one into a corner and dip it up.
Cool.
And do it that way. And I mean, last year I think I went out one Saturday and I came home with like 8 of them in 15 minutes.
I'm out there with like a 12-foot banister with a big 5-prong gig on it.
Oh, yeah.
Is how I grab them. But I find that if I don't take, so I fillet them, like you said, Y bones are still in.
Yeah.
Fillet them, flip it over, I take the skin off, and then I take all that red fat off that midline because that stuff tastes like pretty muddy to me.
Yeah.
And then I cut them up into little cubes, bread them and pan fry them, and that'll get rid of those Y bones or break them down enough.
So you can
and then I've been putting them in tacos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a citrus slaw with them.
Kind of done the same thing a little bit, but not with that much success. I bow fish for them too. Suckers.
Oh, cool, man.
And that's fun.
You have a dedicated bow fishing rig? Or
Yep. Yep. It's not expensive. I think you can get a setup. I think you can get into it for under $200.
Okay.
It's a fishing reel. I do have a video on my YouTube channel, but all it is a reel that goes in where the stabilizer goes in.
Yeah.
It's a recurve.
Yeah.
And you have a line that comes out. You hook it to the back of the arrow, and just like that.
Awesome.
Oh, it's so much fun.
That seems fun. Yeah. My friend Christy has been bow fishing carp here in Maine somewhere.
Yep.
So I've been kind of interested in getting this set up.
Legally in New Hampshire, there is a season for bow fishing, and I want to say it ends, I think, May 31st.
Is it only for suckers?
Yeah, or you can carp, but we just don't have it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just raw fish. You can't bow hunt a sport fish.
Yeah.
Like anything.
Right.
Anything else is a seasonized. Just suckers, and there is a season for, and you can actually still use. I know I'd love to do it sometime, just so someone would call Fish and Game on me. But you can take those pier nets and stand on the bridge in downtown Wolfboro, and put them on the bottom. And when the suckers come over, you can pick them right up. It's still legal. I'd love to do that just to get reaction.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
it would be within 10 minutes you'd have a warden there. It's like, and they would know.
So you're catching them running up the river?
Yep. So you how many times have you looked over a bridge and they're down there hovering?
Yeah, just
Well,
holding.
if you've got your pier net, you familiar with what I'm talking about?
I'm not.
It's a pier net is a net
Like a little purse seine, kind of, right?
well, it's a hoop, and it's about, I'm saying, 36 inches wide.
Yeah.
With a smaller hoop, so it'll actually hang down once you start picking it up. But down in North Carolina, when we fish off the piers, you're 30 feet in the air.
That's how you bring the fish
Yep.
up.
Yep.
Got it.
So what you do is you'd lower that, you'd sit that on the bottom of the river, and when the sucker got over it, you just snag him up.
Oh, cool.
And that's legal.
That's cool.
But it would get a reaction.
And that's right about the time that's usually during turkey season here.
Yep.
That we're doing suckers.
It's hand in hand, yeah.
Yeah. So you're out turkey hunting too?
I try. I love to. I didn't shoot a bird this spring. No, I didn't get one this year.
Yeah.
But I do go.
Yeah.
It was a weird year actually, and down
A lot
where
of people out this year too.
well,
I mean, man,
there's the problem.
And they in Maine got all weird right at the end there was rumors of them starting the season early, then they said they weren't going to, and then suddenly they opened it up early, and they opened it on a Saturday instead of a Monday, so they started the weekend before. And I was like, I got out and I had a great opening day, but I was like kind of annoyed because it usually opens on Monday and nobody who's working can hunt, so you've got this you got 5 days
Nice window.
before everyone's out there. But then it was just Saturday, everybody in the woods just, doing hen calls.
And what happened to me is I got walked in on twice, and I had one guy actually shoot from the road. Totally illegal.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell you. But so after about a week of that, I was a little bit like, maybe enough's enough, and I kind of didn't. But a couple of times I had a couple of toms coming in, and a couple of guys just come walking in at 7:00, with like this tail, like they were gonna call. You've seen people do that with a tail.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, hey, right here, standing by my decoys. It's like, those aren't real birds. Those are my decoys.
They're coming into your decoys.
Yeah. So, but the birds were there too. They could hear them.
Right.
So I ran into that, and I got a little frustrated.
Yeah.
So I come home and I told my wife, it's like, I'm not done turkey on this year. She's like, oh, come on. But I ended up not really going back out, and I saw in the last day I went out, it was I don't know if you've had this happen. It was a windy day, and the toms were still in the trees at 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
That happened to me this year.
I'd never seen
one out
that.
of a tree around 8.
I could hear them and see them, and I get to the point where it's like that bird's not on the ground, and it's like 8:00. It's
Right.
like
Where are you guys?
So I worked myself into a position, and I saw him sitting in a tree. He wouldn't come down.
Yeah.
And finally, at 9:30, it's like I gotta go. Walked out, and he flew into another tree.
This year I had a bird leave a tree, go to another tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's also fiddlehead season,
Yep.
and I see you having fiddleheads all year, so I know you're getting into those.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we grab. I usually get 20, 30 pounds a year,
Yeah, cool.
and I blanch them and freeze them. So I eat fiddleheads. People always, it's like, where are you buying fiddleheads in December? It's like,
My freezer.
in my freezer.
Yeah.
And I usually do up at least, I think I did 20 pounds this year.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah. But that's another thing that this year was tough because people were out.
Yeah,
Everybody's in survival mode.
that's it.
So it's like, well, we got to live off the land. And so they find a fiddlehead patch and they just mow it.
Yeah. Oh, it's so brutal when you walk in and you see they're not even leaving a leaf, you
No.
know.
And
That's hard.
It is because, they don't know any better.
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw one guy with like a 30-gallon barrel. And I'm like, what are you doing, guy? I know he's selling them.
Yeah.
But you take him, and then you take I saw a lot of traffic this year that you don't usually see fiddleheads.
Yep. Well, a lot of people home who just wanted to do the stuff they remembered from when they were kids too.
Yeah.
I think So, yeah. Do you get into the wild leeks at all?
Not really.
Kind of hard to find too.
Yeah, and I wish I did more mushrooming.
Mm-hmm.
I really only get oyster mushrooms, oysters, chicken of the woods, some
Can't pass those up.
chanterelles, pretty much the easy ones.
Yeah, yeah. Easy
Once
to
in a while,
identify,
black
easy to
trumpets.
see. Yeah, they're
Black
nice.
Trumpets are so
Love
good.
black trumpets.
They're nice.
Yeah.
What are you doing in the summer? Once all that dies down, you get past turkey season. It's kind of like that dead zone there for a little bit.
Brook trout.
Yeah, you go right into the trout.
Yeah. Trout usually about really trout from really May and June are
Okay.
trout. And then in July, that's when I go up into the mountains, the White Mountains trout fishing.
Yeah.
Because the water's still cold.
Mountain streams, yeah.
Yeah, and I do, but people, it's funny because of my Instagram and stuff, people are like, wow, you do fish all the time. It's like, well, what you don't know is I leave the house at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour and a half, fish for an hour, drive home, clean the fish, and I'm at work at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So they see the pictures and they just think I've been fishing all day.
Yeah.
When realistically,
You're working all day.
it took me 6 hours to catch 2 fish, and then I got to work for 8 hours. But they don't see that.
Yeah.
So
that's what's weird about Instagram. I'll get on Instagram and feel like depressed about my life sometimes, looking at other people's stuff, and then I have my wife will be like, Daniel, that's not really their life. Like, come on, like that's not really their life. And other people feel like that when they see your Instagram, like.
It's so true, and
it's curation. So
you got to remember, it's like it's 100% narcissism.
Yeah, exactly.
By default,
exactly.
So people only post the good things, and like I post a lot of fails. Like when I went bird hunting Sunday, I didn't get a bird, and I told I get on my Instagram. It's like grouse 4, Ed zip. I didn't get one. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
it's like I got to have a picture from last year, and just to but it's
I gotta have the picture from last year. I know, right?
I've caught people doing that.
Oh yeah.
It's like you were wearing the same pants last year, pal. I know that was that. Yeah.
Just padding the Instagram account.
But brook trout, right through really up until July, and then August is lake trout month.
Wait, before we get to lake trout,
Yep.
I'd just love to know what your how you fish brook trout.
Well, I just started tenkara.
Oh, you are doing that?
Yeah, love it.
It's got its place, right?
That's its place.
Yeah.
I don't recommend catching a fish over 2 pounds with tenkara because the concept is it is great. Yeah, but unfortunately, if you hook into like a 3-pound brook trout in 60-degree water and fight it for 15 minutes, that fish is going to die.
Yeah.
And I've seen people on YouTube, they'll hook the fish and throw the rod in the water and let the fish tire. Then they'll go out and get the rod and pull it back and release a dead fish. It's like that's not
right.
We can't do that.
Yeah.
So tenkara for the mountains around, for the fish that we catch, it's ideal. And especially like unless you're roll casting, it's hard to fly fish in these mountain streams. It's
so tight.
So
and overhead too. A lot of
that's
times.
the problem. So tenkara is perfect.
Yeah. I've been known to cannibalize my tenkara rod a few times. Like sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a piece of fly line that's maybe less than 2 feet, and I'll put a little tippet on there.
Yep.
And because there'll be a little hole I want to fish, and I'll just put a 14-foot rod out there and just dip it.
Yep.
And then sometimes if it's really tight, I'll take out the last 3 segments of the rod, and I'll use another like short little section, and I'll just fish like a miniature. A rod that's 2.5 feet long because I can get into spaces. So tenkara is like versatile if you willing to disassemble the kit.
And the whole concept from above, from heaven. I mean, that's
what it means?
That's what it's all about.
Oh,
it's Japanese. It's like, and you think about it, everything from tenkara. If you actually look at the tenkara flies, they're designed. You look at like if you took a tenkara fly to an old timer that tied flies his whole life and said he'd be like, I can't tie that. It's backwards.
It's backwards.
It's not right.
Totally.
Because it's designed. It's all about from above.
Yeah.
And when the fish come up and rise, you lift the fish.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not above putting a squirminator on mine.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Same.
Which is I know kind of sacrilegious for fly fishermen, but I love it. It's great. And but I use tube jigs.
Yeah.
I'll use worms. And if I'm up against a wall, I'll use worms and a MEP spinner if I'm fishing for food.
I like to have like a little an ultralight with a little inline spinner and a worm is great.
That's how I was taught.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid.
You slay them like that. I mean, it works pretty good.
Yep.
But I also like tenkara when I hit something that's like fly fishing only, and I don't really want to get out there with the whole kit, and I can just.
I'm glad you said that because and I'm sure you're aware of it. But if a pond is in New Hampshire. If a pond is fly fishing only, you can't fish a tenkara rod.
Really? Oh, no.
Because it doesn't meet the definition of a fly rod.
Right, yeah, which means, because the definition has to do with casting with the weight of the line.
In the reel.
Huh.
Yep. So in New Hampshire, if it's fly fishing only, well, that's my opinion.
Oh, I'm going to have to double check on that here in Maine. I've never actually thought about that.
I don't know about Maine. I don't know if Maine.
Oh, man, I would have a hard time picturing a warden not seeing that but I get what you're saying. It doesn't comply.
Oh, the wardens they'll pinch you.
They will, you, huh?
Yeah, they know. Man. And most wardens you talk to say it's it's like lead fishing lures. Like a lot of wardens say it's ridiculous. but it is the law.
Yeah.
New Hampshire went through that a few years ago, where now you can't fish any lead.
Right.
About under an ounce or under.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that thing of, you hear cops say it a lot, like, hey, I don't write the law, I don't interpret the law, I just enforce it.
All they can do is enforce it.
Yeah, that's their job.
And but I mean, I know a lot of guys, retired wardens, that are coincidentally guides, and they'll tell you, it's like, it is what it is. But they have to write their tickets.
Yeah,
they got to support.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Got to keep that thing funded.
But,
so you go into lake trout after that? You trolling?
Oh yeah. Well, we actually jig.
Cool.
We do troll, but like everything else, a boat with downriggers is expensive.
Yeah.
So we take.
And it's a lot to set up. It's
It is
cumbersome,
How
It
deep
is.
are you fishing?
Oh,
lake trout?
150 feet.
Grant's on Sebago, and the folks that he's fishing with troll.
Yep.
And I've been saying, man, I just want to bring my cod fishing rig out there.
Yes,
and
exactly.
just jig for these.
We caught a buddy of mine, Chris, a guy I fish with. We had this. It's like, we ought to just take the bass boat out there to such and such a place, and because he goes, every time I go through there, it's like on the graph, it's just carpeted with lake trout, but they're 130 feet down, and you can't get the downriggers down there. They're not effective. They're slightly effective, but I'm like, well, we'll do it like cod fishing. So we get up the next day. We went out at 4:30 in the morning. He caught 9.
Wow.
With a 1 ounce cod jig, basically.
Right.
And I got it on video. It was
That's
we had
the way.
Let's bring my boat out this weekend.
well, they're down. I mean, we were catching them in 130, 150 feet of water.
Yeah.
It's all about the thermocline.
Yeah.
And in August, typically, the thermocline's locked up wherever it is. And when that happens, those fish are down there. And if you get down there and start jigging, you're gonna catch them.
That's good insight. Really good insight.
Yeah, that's so that's kind of how we spend the month of August.
What do you do with your lake trout?
Release them.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, unless we kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just something about lake trout, because togue lake trout are indigenous to Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah.
And the Native Americans used to call them Neme Kush, which is dweller of the deep.
Ooh, I like that.
So I've always, in the back of my mind, one of these years I'm going to build an ice fishing house and call it Camp Neme Kush.
Yeah. I like
So
that.
I might even do it this year, but so to me they're kind of sacred.
Yeah.
So if there is a sport fish in Winnipesaukee, it's the lake trout. And it's like with me, I don't mind eating rainbows because they're barrel fish.
Yeah.
They're stocked.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize it's like, brown trout, lake trout, they're not native.
Yeah.
And they stock them every year.
Yeah, rainbows are west coast of the U.S. Browns come from Europe.
Germany, I think.
Yeah, so it's
Beautiful
funny.
fish.
Yeah, just to me,
Beautiful
it's like,
fish.
why not focus on our? I mean, I guess they can tolerate some of the conditions that we've created that our native fish can't handle anymore, right? Like browns can take less oxygen. Brook trout are more sensitive.
Yeah.
I just like to see more focus on our native.
Oh God,
native fish.
Brook trout are native.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I wish
yeah.
that the fisheries
Yes.
were managed around
Yep.
the native species instead of this thing of like, well, let's dump 10,000 browns in. Like I just don't really understand that thinking. So
Yeah, and it's they're looking for the tourist dollars.
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, and same with salmon. That was the whole thing with salmon when they put them in big time. Like when Ralph Carpenter, he was a fishing game guy back in 50s, 60s. But they said, look, we need to make Winnipesaukee a salmon fishery because the goal was they wanted people to come up from Massachusetts and with
and
their
it was a
boats
lake
and
trout
fish.
fishery primarily,
It was prior to that. It was really
and the shad, as you said.
it was shad. It was a fishing lake, but not a sport fishing lake.
Right.
Like Lake Wentworth. Are you familiar with that? Lake Wentworth is attached to Lake Winnipesaukee via the Smith River, and Lake Wentworth back in the 50s it might have been the 50s or 60s, was the number one smallmouth lake in New England.
Wow.
But smallmouth aren't indigenous; they were brought here.
Right.
So it's always been a thing. They want to make it a sport fishing,
Yeah.
which to me it's kind of a double-edged sword.
It's pretty rough. I mean, down here on Sebago, where Grant's at, it was the landlocked salmon is called Salmo Salar Sebago. It's named after this lake. And they brought in lake trout to add another sport fish. and that undermined the salmon fishery. Now the lake trout are reproducing on their own, and the salmon have to be stocked in the lake that they're named after because of this meddling. It's just like every time you change one thing,
human factor.
You get these like second and third tier consequences.
And people don't realize that. It's like with crappie, or crappie, however you want to pronounce it. You never saw crappie until 1990, 88.
Okay.
And now they're in every single lake.
Oh, wow.
And there's a limit on them. And they're a great fish. They're prolific. But the problem, Winnipesaukee right now is suffering from rock bass. They're just...
What's rock bass?
Rock bass, yeah.
I
Exactly.
don't know what it is.
It's an invasive species of... It's like... It's not quite a bass. It's not really a perch. It's not a sunfish. It's just a rock. It's got those red eyes. Yeah, they're taken over. And
wow.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do about
Are they
it.
good to eat?
You can eat them. I mean, I have. They're not bad. I don't target them, but you're going to catch, like when you're out Carolina rigging for bass, you're going to catch 10 rock bass to one bass.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never even seen one.
I'll show you some pictures. Remind me.
I'd like to.
I've caught one day on the pier. I caught 100 rock bass on my tenkara. 100.
Wow.
There's just no stopping them.
There's nothing eating them, basically, huh?
No, they're
no competition.
I'm not saying there's nothing eating them. For some reason but you won't catch them in the winter.
Yeah. Okay.
So back to another fish, not sport fish, but a fish that was in Wentworth and Winnipesaukee when I was a kid was whitefish.
Oh, they're good eating, huh?
Yeah, they're gone. They're supposedly still there. I've never caught one in my life. I've seen my grandmother catch them.
We travel up to a lake called Chamquassabamtcook, Ross Lake.
Yeah.
All like all the way up north, west in Maine. Just probably about, what do you think? It's like 20 miles to the Canadian border,
I think
maybe.
so, yeah.
Anyway, there's still an intact whitefish fishery there. There's a few other lakes too, but that's probably the best one. So we'll go up there and fish them. I really like those fish, but it's really sad what's happened. And there's some correlation between smelt introductions and the losing whitefish. Sebago supposedly, same thing you're saying. Sebago supposedly has some, but no one's caught one in decades.
They are very hard to catch, and I'm often suspicious that, when you're out ice fishing, do you use tip-ups?
Yep.
Okay. You'll have those days where you'll have 20 flags and not catch a fish.
Yeah.
I think it's whitefish.
Okay.
Because they'll
that
come
little
in.
tiny mouth that they
Yep.
have.
And what they do is they'll take it in and spit it out in the exact same time, trip your flag, and you pull it up and they have caught whitefish 2 years ago. I think they did catch one documented in Winnipesaukee.
Okay.
And they have caught them in Ospey Lake.
Okay.
So they are there.
Okay. That's good to know.
But I don't know. It's nothing. They don't manage them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people catch fall fish.
Yeah.
And think they're whitefish. And the telltale is
That's a chub, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a chub. But there's no adipose fin.
Right. That's it. They're not a salmonid.
Yeah, they're not a predator fish, and
they're not nearly as good to eat either.
Oh God, no. The eagles like them though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like them.
Yeah.
But there's no shortage of those things.
What do you do after lake trout?
Then it's bear season.
Yeah.
Yep. Then that kicks it off to bear season. We get through that, and then do you bow hunt?
Not that much, no.
Yeah, I do, but I don't. I mean, I went out I think 3 times this year. I just don't have the time, and I don't like hunting in the heat.
Yeah.
Sitting there, and the deer just aren't moving around.
Right.
Until it gets really cold. I don't think.
Yeah.
But I do it. I'm just, it's, I don't put enough time in.
Yeah, I'm the same. I like to rifle hunt. I'm kind of a firearms guy, so it's a passion of mine to understand ballistics more.
Yep.
But I mean, I love archery. It's just, and I like to shoot archery, just even for fun. But I just haven't gotten really focused on bow hunting.
I've always, with me, it's just it goes back to my, that the smell of old walnut and blued steel.
Yeah.
And outer's oil.
Yeah.
It just makes me want to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's the, it's all. So you ask about, I think tradition. I think is. You asked me earlier why do I keep doing?
Yeah.
Why have I kept
put all this energy into it?
Put myself up. It's just the tradition of it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's confusing to people now because a lot of people hunting, like when I was a kid, and probably you as well, but when someone shot a deer, it was a big deal, even if it was a doe. And if a kid shot a deer, like there were 10 kids lined up outside school the next day to talk about it.
Oh wow.
It was just because there were no deer.
I didn't grow up in any hunting culture, so it's like
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I've been only hunting. What's this? My 6th year probably.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no, I was a vegan for a long time.
That's funny.
So I came to this from like all the long circuitous route, and I eventually kind of landed on some of that paleo type diet stuff, and then I just kept being like, well, okay, that's cool, but like, how do you actually, like, if I'm going to like replicate the diet of my ancestors, I kept pushing further. It led me to start hunting.
Yep.
I'd been foraging a long time, but I was never a hunter. So for me, a lot of how I'm doing things are kind of a little out of phase because I don't have the tradition in the background. So a lot of what I do now is like ways that I come up with to do things that are sort of like a similar, but like sometimes a little bit different from how other people do it. Like, you know, a lot of people look at me and be like, dude, that's queer, dude. Why are you doing it like that? You know what I mean?
You did that pretty good.
But anyway, going to what you were saying about there not being a lot of deer.
Oh, so back in, now I'm talking New Hampshire,
Yeah.
in my town, there were just not a lot of deer. And I mean, you know, like I say, I hunted with my stepdad. My biological father shot a few deer when I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old. He also shot the first bear I ever saw. He shot when I was back 1968. Actually, I remember. I can still see him dragging it up the road. But my folks got divorced. My mother remarried. My stepdad loved to hunt, but to this day has not shot a deer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
But he just loved to hunt. So he'd take us out hunting, and we'd sit on a stone wall and fight off the cold.
Yeah.
But there was just no deer. And like even the guys, the better hunters around were like, they'd have years they didn't shoot, you know. So to shoot a doe was a big thing.
Right.
You do it now, it's like you're ostracified.
Right.
You know, it's
right,
like,
right.
what you do? Oh, you know, that didn't, you know, get a. And then when you look at a buck, it's like, well, yeah, that'll score this to score that. So I think
I hate that.
I
so
hate
much.
that.
It drives me crazy.
I hate that, and I think we've lost so much appreciation for hunting
Yeah.
because we've made it such a social thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like taking your deer to the. And I don't down anyone who takes their deer to the butcher. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of the same thing. It's just like you're missing out on the best part.
Yeah.
You know,
Man, can you imagine you're like at somebody's wake, you know, you're at like a funeral and you're looking at the casket and the people who've lost somebody are right there next to you and you're like, yeah, but what's he only like 5'10", you know, or something like that, you know what I mean? Like what, like, so you would just never think to do that. And like, you're looking at this animal and you're with judgments like that. It just creeps me out.
It is. And like I have a lot of people and then throw social media into the mix. And it's just like, it's become this, this big competition.
Man, I hate that. And I understand. The thing is, like, if you do have a big bear, a big buck or something like that, that's something to celebrate, talk about. It's interesting. But I don't like when it starts to take away from other animals. And, you know, today I was saying to Grant, like, there's a really good crop of squirrels this year.
Oh,
you know, the last couple of years
bounty,
were pretty awful.
Yeah.
But they're all these young squirrels, right? Because the numbers got so low. So today I'm out and I shoot a limit of these young squirrels. And I mean, I'm stoked about that. These are going to be good eating squirrels, you know? So to me, a lot of times, like that button buck, we sat down and ate almost the entire deer as 5 of us in a meal. You know, that's a great eating. I think that's something to celebrate too. But I understand why it's important to. I mean, it's like if you were somebody picking apples and you find an apple the size of a grapefruit, like you're going to be like, everybody look, this is crazy. So, you know, it makes sense. It's a specimen, you know, but I mean, making that like where you judge yourself and other people based on your ability to, and as you know, 90% of the time it's luck when that happens. Not like because you tracked the big buck. A lot of times it's walked by you.
It's 9 out of 10 times it is.
Yeah, I would say,
Although
I know there's those guys who really, exactly.
I'm not a very lucky guy.
I mean, we got like that thing up in the Northwoods, you know, like the Benoits and Hal Blood and those guys. I mean, they're consistently tracking down big deer, and I know that exists. But I think for a lot of the guys down here, it's just hit or miss.
You take a guy like Hal Blood, for instance, who's dedicated his life to hunting big deer. I mean, he's very successful, and there is, and don't even Hal Blood will get lucky. But I think if you're good, you tend to get lucky
more often.
Yeah. And but you know, those guys have put their lives into that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, for the average guy like myself, it's like trying to run a heating company in New England and then be a sportsman. It's like that's a tough. You know, I try to pull it off, but it's I don't even like the word sportsman, but I mean to hunt and fish. You know, to get out there, it's tough.
Yep.
You know, you get home at 8:00 at night. You know, you have some dinner. You go to. You know, it's hard to get up at 4 a.m. to go sit in a tree.
Yeah.
Or to go hunting. We do it, But I think if like I can't ever remember if I ever had like a week off to go hunting,
Right.
like a week's vacation.
Right.
It's got to be nice.
I don't usually get to do that. We did that with that turkey hunt that year. We don't get to do that much either.
But squirrel hunting, I'm glad you talked about that because that's probably my most relaxing favorite way to hunt.
If I had to retire by mountain brook trout fishing and squirrel hunting, I would be a happy man. Like those are so relaxing to me.
Yeah, and the thing I like about squirrels is they're easy to drag home. And usually successful.
Yeah.
And it's fresh food all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas and if you're in I hate to use the word like survival situation, but you think about it, you're not going to anybody who thinks you're going to carve a life for yourself, hunting, shooting down moose and deer and taking care of it. You're crazy.
Yeah.
It's the small foraging and the small animals that you can eat them up and go get more.
And they're consistent. Yeah, and they're on the hoof too. Yeah, I think that's neat what you just said too, because if you buy all your food at the supermarket, all your meat, you're getting a lot of fresh meat that's never been frozen. Mm-hmm. But when you eat game, you typically are pulling it out of the freezer, and so it's not fresh, and it's lacking that whatever that freshness is. And I think as somebody who all my meat here is game, but I like to eat eggs because they're not frozen. It's like still a living cell in there. So it is nice when you can bring something home that you don't ever have to, freeze and then thaw.
When like with eggs, I always buy farm fresh eggs, and I don't even put them in the fridge.
Yeah, they'll sit like a month.
Yeah. And people don't realize that. It's like you leave a dozen eggs out on it's like, well, you got to put them in the fridge. It's like, why would you do that? It's like, well, they'll go bad. Yeah. It's like, no, they won't.
Yeah. If they come from the store, they go bad
they
a
will.
lot faster when
Once
they
they've been
scrub them
cold,
clean and stuff.
Yeah.
But
and God knows what's in those eggs.
Exactly. But so squirrel hunting today, I was out and I've got a 22 that's got it's a Ruger 1022 with an integrally suppressed barrel. So looks just like a regular short barrel, but the third of it's a suppressor. Yeah. And I was just going back to what you said before, and about archery and stuff. I know this isn't good, but it blows gases back a little bit because that back pressure, and I get that smell of that burned gunpowder, and I'm like, I know that's toxic, but I like that smell. When I smell that, I just like something warm inside my chest.
Oh, it is. The same with me because you're a firearms guy. Yeah. You appreciate, and I'm the same way when I see those like old shotguns and stuff. Just the smell of black powder is. I don't know if you muzzle or hunt.
A little bit. Not so much, but
just love that smell.
Yeah.
It just sets something off inside.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's to me the reason I keep I'm persistent in failure is that I just love the tradition.
Yeah.
It's a tradition of it, and I think that is something that's kind of going on the wayside.
Yeah. What do you think of you must be seeing though? I think in particular with Steve Rinella and Meat Eater, and that's brought a huge new crop of people in. Yeah. What are you seeing as far as this? How do you view this new hunter who's emerging, and do you think this is a positive direction? Or?
It's it's kind of at first I'll just be honest. I was a bit suspicious, especially with the backcountry hunters and anglers, because I went to a few of their gatherings and I was talking to people, and it's like these great people, by the way. But I was wondering, it was just a different type of, not traditional hunters, a different type of individual that was being brought into the hunting world. And I'm thinking, that's a good thing. Steve Rinella is a very intelligent man, phenomenal writer, great hunter. But I'm never going to go on a sheep hunt.
Right.
I'm never going to spend $30,000 on this and that. So, but I don't begrudge anyone else doing that. Yeah. But also too, they live in a different world. Like out west, it is different.
Very different.
And I respect how they hunt. That type of. But we don't have that theater here. I mean, in New England, deer hunting, you're standing on a flat platform. Or you're, if you're up in Maine, you can, cut a tree. You can't do that around here. Or maybe you can.
Or look at how we bear hunt. I'm jealous. I would love to shoot a bear who's eating blueberries on a hillside that I spot and stalk. Oh, but gosh. I mean, I can't do that here. Nope. And people will be like, well, bait, you're just cheating. Dogs, you're cheating. It's like, you come find a bear for me. Yeah. Show me how you're going to get a bear here.
You're not.
But obviously, like I think what's one of the things that I'm seeing happening is that a lot of the folks who are coming into it now are influenced by a vision of Western hunting that doesn't exist here.
That's what I was trying to say, I guess. Especially if you're going Instagram, you'll see like, Kentucky, Wyoming. I mean, everything is, everything's regional. Like what you were just saying, to hunt bear in New England, you got to bait or use dogs. There's just no other way. Or we wouldn't get half the numbers we do. We wouldn't get a third.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, but it's a tough sell.
Same with our deer hunting too, as you said. We're all in stands.
Yep.
And it doesn't have the romantic look of the spot and stock that you see out there.
Yes, and I think a lot of people get tricked into thinking that's just the norm.
Right.
Like seeing a mule deer at 400 yards and
Yeah.
like you said, belly calling. You're not going to do that in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to do it in Maine. You can go up in northern Maine and cut a track.
Yeah.
Like Hal does.
Yeah.
But that is a different world.
It's a specialized world too.
Oh yeah.
You like you said, the dedication. Like one of the things I'm enjoying about talking with you today is you're such a generalist, so you're doing so many different things. And I don't know Hal. I'm looking forward to meeting Hal. But I'm guessing that moose and deer must be a huge focus for him in order to be as accomplished as he is. Like,
oh yeah,
you must have to say no to a lot of. I'm sure he does a lot of different hunting, but like, you get specialists who that's how they're accomplishing certain things. And if you're a generalist, you don't have the time to dedicate specifically to one craft so much.
Right. Then that's a pretty good explanation of what he does, because he's been if you read any of his books or anything?
I haven't. No.
Yeah.
No.
He started
I've been following him recently on.
Yeah. Well, he started out as a lobsterman.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And he did, I think, 4 years.
Where was he out of?
Harpswell.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I may be wrong, but he did his, I think, 4 years in the military. I think it was the Marines. I should know, but anyways, he was in the military and he got out of the service and came back. He was a lobsterman and started going to northern Maine with like a pop-up trailer, hunting, and just got addicted to it. I think his first rifle, it's funny, was the Remington Model 721 bolt action.
721? No.
Yeah, it was before the 700.
700? Okay.
He hunted with that for a couple of years and just figured this just isn't the rifle for the North Woods, and that's when he started using the pump.
Okay, that's 7600. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and he probably started off with might have started off with a 760.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but he's been hunting that pump gun for his whole life because that's his system.
Yeah,
that's what works. And it's
I'd
a great
love to go
gun.
take his. He teaches like a workshop in the spring. I'd love to go do that.
He's a great guy. I mean, he's a very knowledgeable, but like you say, specialized.
Yeah, right.
But I know he does. a lot of moose hunts, and he does a lot of deer hunts.
Yeah.
And I think he sold his was it Cedar Lodge or whatever it was, his outfit, his business. And then, but I think he's getting back into guiding now because I think the statute of limitations are gone, so he can start guiding again.
Okay, man. Some of the moose that I've seen them post this year are just incredible animals. BHA is interesting to me too because we have like the New England chapters.
Yep.
But generally, it is like a Western, and their emphasis on public lands. Where in Maine, we have almost no public lands, and here everything is private. I think they're doing really important work. I just think that, I guess my only thing is that I wish we had an organization that was because they've come up really fast too. I mean, man,
absolutely,
really big, really fast. I wish something like that was happening that represented us in New England a little bit better. I know that they're trying to, but it's hard when your focus is largely Western and public land, and that emphasis on the backcountry is hard out here. It's just a different world. That's not how we hunt here so much. So
no, and it just doesn't. It doesn't have the romance.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It does for us because we're here,
of course,
and we know how cool it is. But it's different. Like northern Maine is different than any place else in the world. And like I've been to Moab, I've been in Montana, and those are beautiful places. Yeah. But New England definitely needs its own representation.
We're hoping our show is gonna demonstrate a little bit of what it looks like out here. I mean, we do some travel for some of our episodes, but a lot of our episodes, I think in the episodes that are coming out for cable, there's 10 episodes, and it must be 6 to 7 of them are here, or local. So we want to kind of represent this area a little bit in media because it's underrepresented.
We'll be more of like a provincial program.
That's it. And then we will go and travel too. We hope there's a lot I'd like to do in a lot of different places, but I really believe in I want at least 50% of my focus to be here at home. I think that's really important. So
no, several people have said that, like over the years on my videos and stuff. People have said it's really nice to see someone who focuses on New England.
Yeah.
Because other than North Carolina, where I deer hunt, I hunt New Hampshire and Maine and maybe Vermont.
Yeah.
And fish.
Yep.
But it's pretty much the Northeast.
North Carolina's a fun place to hunt.
Oh, it's.
Done some bear hunting down there. Done some
I've never bear hunted there.
Man, their bears are the.
Oh, I know.
I mean, they're
600 pounds.
800 pounds. Yeah. I've seen some bears there that are. I've got this photo I'll show you later, but I got a picture. I stopped on the side of the road because there was a bear crossing sign.
Yep.
And the picture of the bear, it's like one of those diamond-shaped yellow signs like you see with the animal silhouette. The bear that they use for that image is the biggest bear. I mean, it's absurdly huge bear with its belly down to the ground.
They're monsters.
They really are, man.
But again, you talk about dealing with a bear in the heat.
Yeah.
That's, I deer hunt in North Carolina. That's bad enough. I mean,
one thing that's interesting I'll say about the North Carolina bear hunting culture that I experienced, which is just obviously probably its own little subculture, but the people I was with, all emphasis on meat. The hide, skull, and claws all went into a pile in the woods. Huh. I just never seen that. It was like, really?
I know, I couldn't imagine.
The skulls that are, Boone and Crockett skulls, they're just getting tossed into the pile, and just no interest in that part. They really just wanted the meat, and they were into shooting. There was get the big bears was definitely part of it, but people were willing to shoot and eat cubs there too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was,
I know some guys down there, and it is a different culture when it comes to bear hunting. Yeah. Like you talk about rendering fat. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No.
You like the bear rendered fat?
Yeah, we do. Actually, I'd love to know how to do it. People make like balsamic vinaigrette out of that.
I've done that.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, I'll explain how I've been able to do that. Because, correct me if this is not what you're talking about, but if you render bear fat, it's pretty creamy and thick.
Yep.
But if you pressure can it, all of the solids like sink to the bottom, and you end up with a liquid that looks almost like linseed oil or something, like clear and pourable. So in our episode, we made that episode up at Chamquassabam to cook on whitefish, and I made a vinaigrette with it. But I couldn't do that with the bear fat I'm going to make those tacos later today. I can't use that. It's not liquidy enough.
Gotcha.
You have to pressure can it?
Well, I don't know if you have to, but in my experience, when I pressure canned it, it turns into like a clear. Well, it's like maybe a slightly almondy colored clear liquid. Yeah,
Kind of like olive oil.
Yeah,
A little bit.
Way thinner than olive oil. Not thinner, but like it's even less viscosity than olive oil. Anyway, so that's how I was able to do it, pressure canning.
Huh.
But it also it sort of has this rancidity, I think, from that heat that I didn't like. So I prefer it fresh. Mm-hmm. But so we're now at we're in the season now. It's squirrels open.
Yep.
Grouse is open. Waterfowl's open. Yeah. What's the rest of your year like? Do you waterfowl?
I used to. I do a little bit, a couple of times. The water where I am, the waterfowl is tough. We don't have a lot of ducks. We had a lot last year. This year we're in kind of a drought, actually.
Yeah. It hasn't really gotten cold yet either.
No. No, and the woodcock really, I don't think have been showing up either.
Okay. I've been hearing that they're declining here. My neighborhood's pretty good for them, but
really,
yeah.
Well, I didn't see any up north.
Okay.
And my friend Rick, who got 42 flushes, his day out in grouse, he only saw 2 woodcock.
Okay.
Out of those 42 flushes, I didn't see 1 woodcock. And I don't know if they're coming in, if the flights are coming in down home or not yet. But it's I don't know. Woodcock are funny. I mean, I've had days where I've gone out and shot 3 woodcock in 15 minutes, and then
with dogs or just walking.
Just walking. Yeah. My friend Al has a bird dog, but 9 out of 10 times when I'm bird hunting, I'm just busting brush.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love hunting with a dog. A good dog.
Yeah.
It's great.
I've never bird hunted with a dog.
Well, your success rate goes through the roof.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, think about it. Dogs, okay, there's the bird. Get ready. And you pick out, it's like, as opposed to like we have, a half a second.
I mean, it explodes, and then you think, like, by the time you realize that it's,
Even which way it's going. Yeah.
And then it's so thick that, usually you don't have a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, bird hunting with a dog is great. But, no, I've done it all. I mean, I think. The exception, I've never moose hunted.
Oh, no kidding.
Never pulled a permit.
You put in every year in Maine?
I did, not in Maine. New Hampshire I put in for 20 years and never got drawn.
Okay.
And then I stopped. I started up again, and then I stopped. But I heard because in New Hampshire, I don't know if Maine's the same way, you build points.
Yep, same.
Yeah. So, but never got drawn.
You never been a sub-permittee for anybody?
Well, I was in 1994, but I got kind of buggered out of it because the guy ended up taking his brother.
Oh, yeah.
So
okay.
I had a chance.
Yeah.
But I helped process the moose.
Okay, yeah. you know that job. I went last year as a sub-permittee for my friend Justin, and it was nice to get a taste of it because that's the only time I've been. And so I keep putting in every year, but eventually.
Yeah.
It's just hard that you can't. I would just wish that you could somehow do it more in your life, you know?
Well, it's tough, and it is it's a resource they really have to closely manage.
Of course.
But once, maybe someday, I don't know. I always thought if I put in out of state, I'd have better luck, but I've never been drawn. Well, Hal Blood was 30 years before
I don't want to hear about that.
Before he got drawn.
Every year that they announce them, and I go through the list, I look first for my name, and then I go one friend by friend. You know, I just go alphabetically and look for everybody. You know, who's in this year.
But all the hunts that he went on, he was like 28, 29, 30 years or something like that. It was ridiculous. Wow. And it was only a couple of years ago he actually got pulled.
Jeez.
And
imagine that, because he's going up.
I think he got
all
one.
the time. Yeah, I bet. Oh, wow.
I don't know Hal personally.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've read about him and I know him.
Big part of the main culture, though. Huh?
Yeah, it's hard not to know who he is.
Yeah, they invited me on their podcast, so I'm
no
hoping.
kidding.
Yeah, I'm hoping that I end up on there because I'd love to go meet those guys.
There's Lee Libby and there's a couple of other guys.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to connect in with that crowd. I'd really like to. Deer hunting is where I'm the weakest, and that's what I would really love to. I'd love to pick up some stuff from those guys.
Well, if you got the time to go up where he goes, his system works up there. Of course, it wouldn't work.
Wouldn't work here, yeah.
And I talked to him about that over in Vermont. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was over there. I met him over there, and I said, if I cut a track and walk for 2 miles, I'm in someone's clothesline.
Yeah, you're in somebody's posted property.
The deer live behind the houses where I am. So you gotta. With us, it's all about pinch points.
Yeah.
You talk about like signpost rubs. It's like we don't even have brown ash.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just a different world.
Yeah.
But if you can adapt to his system and go up there, it's a great.
I think it'd be fun, to go up there. Yeah, it seems like they're mostly up there in the muzzle loading season a lot of time, though.
Yeah,
a lot of the people who are going up there because they're tracking through the snow.
He likes the fresh powder, but they have it up there too. They'll have snow, like in Bose, up on Parmacini. God, was it not last year, but the year before they had snow on Halloween and it never went away.
Wow.
What about you, Grant? What do you like to hunt, eat, fish?
I'm just getting into hunting. Basically, I've done some turkey, got a bear last year.
Oh, nice.
Squirrel hunting is probably what I'm best at.
You've been fishing togue too.
Yeah, fishing lake trout.
Oh, you said Sebago.
Yeah. Where they want to just get rid of the lake trout there because they're killing the salmon.
Well, I'd love to help them out with that.
You've been doing a little striper fishing too.
Yeah, I've done some striper fishing, but
do you eat togue?
Yeah.
Do you? How do you cook it?
I like to cook it on a pan, but mostly smoke it.
Yes, I think smoking is. Do you take that brown stripe out of the side?
Yeah.
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 That makes a difference. I use it in chowder a lot. I don't eat a lot of togue, but
you make chowder out of it when you do though.
It often ends up in a chowder. Yeah, I do like fish chowder.
So if you kill it by accident, that's when you'll eat it.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had a fish chowder in 3.5 years.
Congratulations!
Because I don't do the dairy, but I'm breaking back into. The other night, my wife did get some sour cream down my throat. Yeah. She made an artichoke dip, and I'm looking at it. She goes, "Just eat it."
I had Grant bring all that cheddar today for the tacos.
Oh, I'm fine. No,
it's so funny.
But,
you can add whatever you want. It's funny because Grant likes to give me a hard time about. He likes to braise meat, and I personally. I like braised meat, but
you're winning me over on this too.
So I always make my tacos with grind. Well, we go to like we like to find.
Oh, so you do it like what's the word the Mexican word I'm looking for?
Like carnita.
Yes.
So that's the thing. So
Grant
and I like to go to real traditional Mexican restaurants, like run by like local Mexican families, right?
Got it.
And of course, I love those kind of tacos.
Yeah.
But I grew up on like old El Paso boxes,
Sure.
As did I.
So I'll still I like sour cream, I like cheese, I like the ground meat. So I still make my tacos like that. And Grant kind of looks at me like, so he makes great tacos because he'll braise the meat. And
at least you use corn tortillas, Daniel.
But exactly. But today I was putting everything together and I was thinking about you sort of making fun of me. Like, because what do they call it? Like an American style tacos, what they call it. Which I would never order. Like,
they're
if we were
great.
out.
Their tachos are awesome.
But,
it's like American chop suey.
Yeah.
I was like, what is, we have a way of, it is funny how we have our little traditional, like, did you ever eat, again, tuna pea wiggle?
Never even heard
Tuna
that.
pea wiggle.
Tuna pea wiggle.
Grant's interested.
I'm very interested.
It was a can of tuna fish, a can of peas, cream of mushroom soup, and noodles.
Huh.
And you cook it all up, and it was tuna pea wiggle.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense.
But that was when I was a kid. It was like that in Welsh. We used to call it Welsh rabbit, but the basically chipped beef, Welsh rarebit and stuff. I mean, all that our own like interpretation of that was way off from what it actually is. Like a can of cream of mushroom soup over saltines, I thought was like the delicacy in other countries. And it had no clue. Started watching these cooking shows. It's like, what are they doing? That's Welsh rarebit. Okay. Culture.
Wow, that's funny, man. Well, I guess I want to kind of wrap a bow on. I want to ask you about the changes that you've seen over the course of your lifetime, because you were talking about what it was like when you were a kid, particularly with the woods, with the waters, watching all these changes. Like, how dramatic has the change been, and then how do you feel about the future going forward, as far as, are you looking at the direction of things and optimistically or pessimistically, and do you think that this moment in time right now that we're in feel as critical to you as seems like it is to other people?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic actually.
Good.
About as far as the future of wildlife.
Good.
And as far as I'm concerned, based on my experience, these are the good old days of hunting and fishing.
Really?
In New England, I think so.
Oh,
absolutely.
man, that's making me smile.
Well, for many reasons, like when back as I said, my earliest memories of brook trout fishing were, I was probably 4 years old, so that's 1968. We'd go out and we would catch, fish, but also too, they were slowly declining because fertilizers from fields were getting in the brooks, and that green
Wiping out the oxygen.
Yeah, and fish were dying. Constantly. The crayfish were dying, and I saw that right up through the 80s, and then all of a sudden it just seemed like in Winnipesaukee. I mean, Winnipesaukee has come in the last 20 years has just come a long way. I mean, the fish, like for instance, if you got a 24-inch salmon in Winnipesaukee 20 years ago, it was about an inch and a half. It was this big around.
Racer.
It was a racer. Now a 20-inch fish is a football.
Wow.
It's just the fish are healthier, and I think it's because we've cleaned up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we're not still doing things wrong,
but rivers used to have a negative connotation.
Oh my God!
Right?
It was silt and green. I mean, they were nasty.
Yeah.
And now I look at like the rivers that were not good, say back in the 70s and 80s, just seem to be a lot cleaner now, and there's a lot more wildlife. So like the whitetail deer hunting has come threefold. Anyway, I mean, there's a lot more deer, wild turkeys.
Yeah.
I mean, I never saw wild turkeys till I was 30.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's been 25 years, really. I mean, and that was like this one guy reintroduced like two birds or something. I mean, they tried it once in the late 60s, but it really took off the second time around. And now it's too many.
Yeah.
Black bear. How many black bear do we have compared to when I was a kid? I mean, I probably saw, other than the ones that got shot, as I said, my father shot one back when I was 4 years old. My uncle shot one when I was about 12, but that was it. And I never saw another bear until I started running behind dogs with other guys, treeing them. But they were, now it's like it's nothing. I think this summer I've seen 8 or 10 bear driving down the road.
Yeah. Wow.
The video we talked about earlier, that was behind my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm out on this, and it's a funny story. This year, well, about a month ago, it was before bear season. Even in New Hampshire, a buddy come over and he needed a trap gun for the day, so I gave him a trap gun, and we were talking about bear hunting. He was looking at my mounts and stuff. I walk him out to the car, and I'm walking back, and there's a bear on the other side of the pond looking at me. So it's like you never saw that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Bald eagles.
Yeah.
The fish in general. It just seems like everything. Predators are on the rise. We have more coyotes. We have more fox, we have bobcats. Mm-hmm. We're overrun with bobcats. You know, the lynx are starting to move down.
Yeah.
So, gray squirrels. I mean, I've never seen this many gray squirrels.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Because I'm coming into it so late, so I have just the snapshot of...
It's good timing.
Good. I mean, because I don't remember, like, wildlife was, to me, wasn't... I just didn't pay as much attention when I was a kid because I wasn't interactive with it the way I am today. So
you say you're from Dover.
Yeah.
So, you probably didn't like... I don't know if you did like camping or hunting or fishing.
No. We didn't,
okay,
we didn't do anything like that. Not until I was older. So
yep.
Yeah, so I wasn't like in nature until I was a teenager, and then by then I was like a vegan. So I wasn't, it was more like recreation, but not interactive.
I got a friend of mine who's a vegan, a beer vegan actually on Instagram. He's a great kid. I've only met him a couple times, but he's in Pittsburgh right now. Great guy, and I love to hear him talk about why he's a vegan. Mm-hmm. Is interesting because it's very people get not a lot of people understand. It's just it's a lifestyle, and I respect it 100%. Yeah. I do. And I like, after saying that, I'd also, as much as I love to hunt and fish, and the thing about like the BHA, sometimes I want to say, hey, look, if everybody goes squirrel hunting, there aren't going to be any. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If everybody goes, it's like, I love to see people get into it, but we got to take, kind of also realize it's like, the more people hunting and fishing, the more impact we're going to have.
There has been a big decline in hunters too.
And there is, and that
goes sort of backfilling a
that
void.
Goes down every year.
Yeah,
and I forgot what state it is. I know it wasn't Wisconsin, but I think the deer hunting the deer hunters just consistently have gone down for the last 20 years, every year.
Right.
And but that was true, and I think that's still true. But with the exception, this has been a weird year because all of a sudden, like New Hampshire sold more hunting and fishing licenses than they have in forever.
Right.
Because people were, the mindset, we got to get out of the city. We got to learn how to live off the land. That lasted about 2 weeks.
That's so funny.
As soon as the Taco Bells were open, they were done.
Yeah, they were good.
and again, I'm kind of glad for that because there's too much impact. It's like the White Mountains saw more trash this year than they've ever seen.
Yeah. Because
people would just don't know how to take care of themselves. Don't know how to.
No, it's masks
they don't know how to
on
do
the ground
it.
everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like if everyone burned. I love to burn wood, but if everyone burned wood, we wouldn't have any trees.
Right.
So it's all in moderation. But so back to your question. I'm optimistic as long as we can continue doing what we're doing, and we don't. My fear is overdevelopment, loss of habitat.
That's it.
Just talking about that today.
Yeah, that is the number one problem with any wildlife or fish, whether it's a fishery or whether it's a white-tailed deer. It's like you can't keep taking away the habitat because that never comes back.
Sometimes I feel like the climate change conversation is like a way of avoiding the habitat conversation, which to me is a more important conversation because if the temperatures change, animals will move north and south appropriately, but if there's nowhere for any animals to go, to me, that's like the biggest problem. And you don't hear as much about habitat. We just hear about climate all the time.
And when you talk about like carrying capacity, and like why management is so like a certain amount of area has a certain carrying capacity and it'll only take care of so many white-tailed deer, for instance. Well, if you take a third of that away, all those deer can't live in that same spot.
Right.
And so that's the problem. Yeah. It's like, and I look at these companies like Dollar General. I'll just throw some names out there, but I mean, they got one in every zip code.
Oh my God, more than one in every zip code almost.
That's a parking lot, a septic system, so it's like that is a huge. Those box stores. It's just every time you put in a parking lot. Yeah. And reroute, it's like that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I fear.
Right.
And I don't know how you stop that.
Yeah, you need a pandemic worse than this one. Knock it back a little bit, I guess.
I don't know what to. Yeah, I mean, and like I know BHA addresses that, and they've got bigger fish to fry, like with Pebble Mine and all. They got fires everywhere they got to put out. I understand that, but it's the little local. It's the little problems that add up. Like you think of how many housing developments went in the last 10 years in just this area.
Right. Yeah.
But here we are. I live in a house.
Yeah.
I have a flush toilet.
Right.
So I go to the post. I have a cell phone.
That's it. I mean, I feel like I've been part of the gentrification of this area. So I mean, what can I say? Now I'm sitting here this year seeing all these license plates, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut,
Texas.
Buying everything up. Yeah, exactly. But buying everything up and developing, and it's been, I understand a lot of people going, I want to get out of the city. I'm going to go to Maine.
Yep.
I'm going to build a house there, and I'm going to have this like bug out location. I respect that because I would do the same thing. But being here, watching it happen is hard. But then knowing that when I moved here, someone was thinking that about me, and that's fair too.
It's funny you say that because we have a house in North Carolina. My wife and I have a place in North Carolina, and that's how we met some folks down there. But we bought a house that was built.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. But it's kind of like I noticed that when I went down, it's like, oh, another Yankee.
Yeah,
It was kind of like, we're fine. We have good friends and stuff down there. But there was that feeling of like I'm an outsider here.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody thinks I'm from Boston.
Oh,
no
offense, Boston listeners.
No. I mean, no offense, Boston.
No,
but
it was me saying it. I'm like, Boston,
because of the accent.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Right.
No, I'm not from quite not from Boston, but so
we smack talk Boston too, where I live.
Right. So I bought some land up in Mount Chase a couple of years ago with the intention of building my camp and this and that. And I went into Patton, Maine, into the supermarket, and it's just great old classic supermarket, and it's great. And people looking at me, I was like, another one of those guys. And I felt that same thing. I'm like, wow, I'm really doing the same thing.
Yeah.
That, so it is, you get caught in that. And I guess I'm just as guilty.
Yeah.
We all are.
It's a tough situation. Yeah, it's like chop wood, carry water, because what can you do? I mean, we're all part of it. We're all contributing to it. I think like the kind of stuff we've been talking about today, it's like it does reduce our footprint, and it's a noble pursuit, but it, like you said, I come home and flush the toilet and
yeah, it's we all carry cell phones. We're all on, we're all on social media. We're all guilty. We're all got a. I guess it's if we could just somehow a little more moderation. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but that just goes against everything human nature.
Yeah, supersize it.
It's just and you look at the new driving up here. I was just for the heck of it. I always try to count how many brand new pickup trucks I see, and I've stopped at like 50.
Yeah.
And I'm talking $70,000, $80,000 trucks.
I was gonna say,
like,
the prices of these trucks now.
I'm like,
unbelievable.
It's just I don't get. I when is enough?
Yeah.
But anyway, to each his own. I mean, that's what you want to do.
Well, but the thing is that because it's not sustainable, that means we will have to change how we do it.
And it's not.
We can't do it this way forever.
It's literally impossible.
Impossible to do an unsustainable thing forever.
To kind of get into that is like when you talk about impact versus displaced impact, and I think where a lot of people get tricked is like we don't have chrome plating factories in downtown pumping their stuff into the river. We're not doing that anymore. We used to. Mm-hmm. Okay, we don't do that anymore, but we're still buying the chrome bumpers.
Yeah,
the cell phones. Anything electronic that has a carbon footprint somewhere. It's contaminating the ground somewhere in the world.
Carbon, but also strip mining and all.
Oh my God! Things, and the solar industry and the hundreds of tons of toxic waste. God knows what they're doing with it. Mm-hmm. But so we have this image like, well, I'll put solar panels on the roof and I'm gonna do my part. It's like, well, I wonder sometimes if those solar, what's the real trade-off?
Yeah.
And where were those solar panels made? What's the carbon footprint of those panels?
And what about historically, people thought that petroleum, was this incredible ecologically sustainable thing because we were using whale oil before, and we were wiping out the whales, and so this was like. They were worried the world was going to be plunged into darkness and the Industrial Revolution was going to end because we were running out of whales. And then it was like this was a miraculous discovery. Now we're treating solar that way, and it will only be down the road when we see what the actual impacts of it are.
Well, it's like cigarettes and the sea rations.
Yeah, totally.
It's the same thing. And and you think about it, it was only 1849 in Pennsylvania that guy discovered oil. That was only 150 years ago.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
And realistically, up until World War II, it never really, up until then, it wasn't a real problem. Now it's like we've just become such mass consumers. And so we're only talking, 70 years now? It's half that.
Wow.
So that's what scares me. So I'm optimistic, but I'm also scared
Yeah.
to death that we've crossed that threshold of ever fixing this problem.
Yeah, I know. And
When you stop,
and when you feel defeatist, it's easy to keep doing it.
and like there's one bright side, I guess. So let's say the oil industry saved the whales. So there's a bright side.
We got to do a save the oil sticker.
But yeah, oil has to become this all of a sudden this special. All right, so let's say the electric cars, electric trucks take over, and all of a sudden the internal combustion becomes obsolete. Then what? I mean,
Yeah, where's the electricity going to come from?
Yeah. That's
Hydro, nuclear.
yeah.
You know, I mean,
It's not
nuclear. It's
pretty.
like this thing where I want to go cook tacos here soon, but nuclear is one of these things where you get power now, but you've got to keep these fuel rods cool for millions of years. Like, what a crazy investment to make. Where the idea that your kids and their kids and their kids and their kids and their kids for countless generations are going to have to maintain these spent fuel rods lest they melt down and contaminate massive tracts of land and water. I mean, these electric cars, everybody's got it in their head that they just, like, the electricity just magically shows up clean. It's that thing you were talking about. It's displaced.
It's displaced. It's like the battery in the Prius, and I don't want to offend any Prius owners, but I mean, it starts out in Canada, goes to
Actually,
Malaysia.
most Prius owners are already offended. So.
Probably, but you say track that battery. Yes, you're right, but
Most, not all.
but
It's like 80%.
It's bad. It's like
true.
it's not the answer.
And it's got a short lifespan.
Oh, and then what do you do? Then what do you do with it?
Yeah. And now you've got something that's just as bad as the fossil fuel car.
So it's like with oil. It's like, well, we need to drill more oil. It's like, no, we need to use less. I mean, that's it's the synthetics. It's just oil is a problem because everything comes from it.
You could have it if you had 1.5 million people in the world, and we could probably use it all we wanted to. But with
In the world, yeah,
7 billion people, it's like now
there's not a lot of countries left that only have.
Yeah, I know. That's it.
When you're talking, I think China's like what 1.5 billion now.
Jeez, I mean, I know we'll be like, there's 35,000 black bears in Maine. But there's 1 million people. I mean, it's just, how we judge populations of animals, and we'll think they're doing so well. And it's like, wow, people are doing real well then.
Well, have you read American Serengeti?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what a book.
Yeah.
I got to interview him.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Dan Flores.
Dan Flores, yeah. And Coyote America is quite good, too. They came out the same year, but American Serengeti, geez, is that a riveting read.
The coyote to me is like this. To me, the coyote is the ultimate survivor.
Yes,
and it's a good example of as soon as you try to eradicate it. Now it's like
double, triple, quadruple everywhere in the country.
I mean, I think it was 1938. I think the coyote population in the country was 500,000.
Wow,
something like that.
And they were restricted to the desert Southwest.
Yeah. Oh, they were in that little strip. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they tried to get rid of them, it's like they inhabited the rest. Now they got coyotes in Newbury Street.
Yeah.
Displace them.
Yeah.
And then they just start reproducing everywhere.
And I think
the more of them you kill, the more they make.
I think we killed 1 million last year, or some ridiculous amount.
It's such a fruitless effort. Yep. I think I had a guy convince me on Instagram, maybe he's listening, but he was saying to me, look, by killing coyotes where I deer hunt, there are more mature bucks now. And I was like, I don't know. But he got me kind of convinced. Okay, maybe on like a very local level you could have an impact, but ultimately you just spread them. The more of them you kill, the more you spread them. And now they filled in everything.
Yep, that's how they
every
survive.
city in the country. I respect coyotes so much.
I do because ultimately I used to hunt them and I've shot a few, but I haven't shot one. Huh?
Did you ever eat one?
No, I can't eat a dog. Yeah. I know it's a weird thing with me. I just have a certain frog legs.
That's not a weird thing to.
And frog legs.
I can't eat frog legs. I look at the frog and I'm like, I see this. I can't do it. and I know I'm a wimp. You
got to have your totems.
I have my frog, coyote, and gray squirrel. Well, not gray squirrel, but frogs are definitely my totem animal. Yeah. But I don't know. But no, I've never eaten a coyote, nor probably ever will.
Yeah.
I would if I had
It's
to.
not bad. I ate one. It was pretty good.
I guess it is a rite of passage now. It is kind of the in vogue.
I don't know.
Eat a coyote.
I was like,
I've seen
why
a lot
else
of
would I
guys do it
shoot
on video.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know.
It's like a stunt.
Well, I think Steve Ranella started that.
Yeah.
He did it once, and
Yeah.
then everybody on their YouTube
Man,
channel.
they just roasted the ribs. I was like, back straps, nice little steaks. It's good. They were just like took those ribs and put them on a fire. I was like, I don't know if that's how I'd go about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is funny because squirrel is very good if it's cooked properly.
How do you cook them?
Actually, what I do, I used to chicken fry them.
Okay.
I used to steam them,
Yeah.
and then I would just fry them.
Oh.
Quarter them up
Okay.
and deep fry them,
Yeah.
like everything else. But now I actually debone it completely.
Huh.
Yep, and I tenderize it. I hammer the heck out of it. I tenderize it and flatten it out so it almost looks like a flank steak or something. It almost looks like a shaved steak.
Yeah.
You know the shaved steak you. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then I just
Like something that's been through a cuber.
Yes, yeah. I hammer the heck out of it, and then I saute it up in like a wine and shallot, and then I'll put it in with some miso.
Sounds good.
And,
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I've given it to people, and I don't normally do this, but I've given it to people, and they didn't know what it was,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you really want to know? It's like, no. And they like it. But if I said it was squirrel, they wouldn't eat it.
Right.
We wowed some New Yorkers recently with it.
Oh,
but
it's so good.
We do the quarters, and then I simmer them for 45 minutes in broth, and then take them out, and then I pan fry them in some batter after that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of bone-in cooking.
Yeah.
Like I say, my grandmother used to put them she took her colander. My grandmother had like 2 pots to her name and a colander, and she'd put the colander in, she'd steam it, quarter it up, and then would deep fry it with like a batter, cornmeal typically.
Yeah.
And that's good, but off the bone
I
and
gotta
stuff.
try this way you're talking about.
Yeah.
This conversation is gonna go on forever. Like you do this. But are you quartering it and then boning it out, or are you boning out a whole squirrel?
Quarter it out.
Yeah.
Pull out what back straps there are,
Yeah.
and pull some meat off the sides, and then just bone out each leg.
Okay.
And the back legs, that's where the haunches is where you get all the meat.
Right.
And then just put it on a cutting board with a good, nice tenderizer and hammer the heck out of it.
Jeez.
And it flattens out. Like I can make a piece of squirrel meat this big, like that.
Yeah.
And then and it cooks
And then
quick.
it's so thin, it must cook really
yeah.
fast.
You throw it in with some shallots and a little bit of white wine or ghee, typically. And then I use a lot of cumin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do take the back legs of squirrels and I do in olive oil and cumin and a little salt and pepper, and I do cook them that way.
Okay.
And people think it's actually like chicken wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chinese chicken wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
While we're still going, do you do any trapping?
I do. I haven't in a couple of years, but I don't do dry land. I do beaver and muskrat, and I love.
Getting
Here we
so
go.
hungry. Like
But,
beaver.
I love beaver is very good palatable. I'm trying to avoid all. the
I
beaver
know.
jokes.
How do you get around
You
it?
can't, but I've eaten a lot of beaver.
Yeah, me too. Grant, you ever eaten a beaver?
And it's one of the best underestimated, unknown meats out there.
It's incredible, right?
And I think if people knew how good it was, we wouldn't have a beaver problem.
Yeah.
My wife did a beaver vindaloo.
What's
I don't know what vindaloo is.
It's an Indian. It's
Oh, yeah.
if you go like a Thai restaurant or Indian, I think
Indian, I think.
I think it's Indian. It's a vindaloo. It's a hot Indian dish, and usually done with either chicken or lamb, I believe. I can't remember which, but she did a beaver vindaloo that was phenomenal. My wife's quite a cook. I mean, she spent her young childhood in northern Africa and Eastern Europe in a van. So she learned how to cook.
Cool.
And she has a Mediterranean, I call it a Mediterranean palate. She says it's Asian, but let's go with Asian. But she loves Indian food. She loves hummus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's her palate. So, but she makes stafado. You ever have that?
No.
It's it's a Greek beef stew. They substitute potatoes with halloumi cheese.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen that.
It's like a cheese you can actually fry.
Yeah.
And then cinnamon sticks.
Wow.
It's phenomenal.
Wow.
That's like an
coming
area I
over
haven't
for
really
dinner.
explored very much in my cooking.
So I would like to do a beaver stafado.
Yeah.
That would be phenomenal.
I'll bring you a beaver.
Yeah.
I just bought that beaver bog, so I'm
It sounds so funny. I just bought a beaver bog.
I'm fixing to get me some beavers.
But trapping, yeah, I mean, I think I caught 2 years ago. I caught 8 beaver. I ate every one of them.
God, they're so good. Do you ever use the back straps as steak?
Absolutely.
It's amazing how good it is.
Well, I think now maybe you see if you agree. Beaver has like 3 cuts of meat. You got your back haunches, your back straps, and then your front shoulders, which the front shoulders are probably the least desirable.
I haven't cooked the front shoulders. I've only cooked the hams and the back straps because I've never trapped. I've been given the meat by trappers.
A good way to do it is just if you get a small one, I say small, let's say 20 inches or so, throw it in a roaster, the whole thing.
Okay.
Throw it in a roaster with potatoes, the usual root vegetables, and just it'll fall off the bone. That is the easiest way, and you get the most out of it.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It makes the vegetables taste delicious.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: have you eaten beaver tail?
Did we end up doing it?
We didn't.
So what are they in the freezer still?
I think
my dog ended up with the tail.
I think Kendall and I might have eaten the tail.
I think you tried.
it's something you got to try. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I will be for sure.
Yeah, the way I do it, the old mountain men used to just throw it in the fire and catch it on fire, and it's like eating God knows what.
Gristle.
But what I do is I put it on the grill and cook it real slow, and once it actually what happens is the skin separates from that.
Kind of blisters up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you pull the skin off, and what you have, because all it is a fat store. It's 100% fat. And then what I do is I'll barbecue it. I'll finish it off again, give it a second cook with barbecue sauce. Oh, my God. It's like if you've ever sucked the meat, the baby back ribs.
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like.
What is it like a certain time of year that they've got that fat? Because they must burn through that over the winter or something.
That's what keeps them alive.
So you want to catch them like going into
fall's best.
Winter. Yeah.
But I typically do spring beaver, and
they still fatty.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can't wait.
Well, the beaver tail saved many a mountain man. You know that
from like fat starvation basically, right?
Because they'd go for months without fat in the kettle. I mean, they were living off God knows what, and all of a sudden they'd kill a beaver. It's like, and just that tail was like a stick of butter.
Yeah.
And actually, beaver. It's also good after you cook it up. You can mash it up and put it on potatoes. And it's like margarine.
Like butter, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you got to try it.
Okay.
It's really good. So to answer your question, yeah, I love to trap. And actually, if you're living off the land, trapping, I think, is probably the only way you're going to survive because it's so passive.
Yeah.
You can put out 50 traps and go about your day doing firewood or fixing the roof or whatever. Go check your traps. You're going to have something to eat.
Yep.
Because, if you're hunting, it's it's constant overland travel. You're burning calories. It just becomes a game of, can I shoot what, is it even worth getting out of bed in the
Plus
morning?
your traps are like reusable,
yeah.
You're wasting rounds or arrows or whatever it is,
Yeah. And once you get your trap line established, it's like it's a factory.
I was talking to this guy the other day who studies the ancient human-dog relationship, and we were talking about that movie Alpha that came out.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you're not missing much, but it's one of the, anyway, they had some very realistic primitive stone napping going on. They're making spear points. And then they haft them onto stone. And there's this scene where they throw them into the ground on purpose. And I just kind of like in a movie, like you'll see where it'll be like a medieval thing, and they'll take their sword and stick it in the ground. And you're like, you would just never do that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the value of your pointy, sticky things is so important. And so like trapping is cool because you're not shooting rounds, you're not shooting arrows, and potentially losing, either running out of ammunition or losing arrows. Whereas like those traps are renewable.
Yeah, and I know it's not legal in any state in the country, and there's a disclaimer, but primitive trapping.
Yeah, snaring and
is
deadfalls.
Deadfalls, or
because you can't even snare here now. Bear, I guess. When
if you're a resident, you can snare one trap.
Yeah, for bear, but you can't snare rabbits or anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
No. You can snare. Well, Maine, I'm not sure. New Hampshire, you can snare beaver under the ice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can do that here. Yeah, you can do that here.
Yeah. Very productive.
I bet.
Very productive. And the thing with snares is, I can head out with 100 snares in my pocket, no sweat. I don't want to carry 100 330 Connie bears.
Yeah,
I don't want to carry 6.
Right. Right.
So there's a lot of advantages.
You also don't have to worry about getting caught up in that thing. I mean, those Connie bears are scary when they get that big. Man.
Yeah. Always use your safeties.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. But no, trapping, I think, is
that's the name of the episode.
Always use your safeties.
Yeah.
Always use your safeties. Well, I'll tell you, I've had some close calls. I've known people who have got caught. A retired fishing game guy, the guy that actually got me interested in trapping, coincidentally. I was a kid playing by the stone. I was actually squirrel hunting with a BB gun, and this old timer comes walking down by with snowshoes, and I'm like, where's he going? So I followed him down to the river, and he was checking his trap line, and he had a pair of snowshoes with bindings that he made out of inner tubes.
Oh, cool.
So you could pull them off. So he said, if I fall through the ice, I can get them off.
Yank 'em off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
so it's just he was a retired game warden, but he spent like the rest of his life trapping. So he kind of got me into. He taught me how to do the pyramid. Set up poplar pyramid.
Okay. No,
To bring them in.
For the beaver.
Yeah. If you take they love poplar.
Yeah.
And if you do like a
Or
little,
Maine, we say popple.
yeah, or what do they call it in Colorado? Aspen, or
Yeah.
it's an aspen.
Oh, same thing.
I think so.
And I actually think they are. That
Two
is their correct proper name out here, because we have the big tooth aspen and what's the other one we have? Anyway, but I think here they are aspens, but we call them poplar.
Poplar.
Yeah.
Poplar.
Poplar.
With an AH.
Yeah, poplar bud.
But so he'd make a teepee, and then he'd set his traps up here, and the beaver would come up to get the poplar, and
He'd catch them on their way up
Yep.
to it,
yeah,
coming out of their runs there.
Yeah, and he was using a lot of drowning sets.
Yeah. My wife's having a real hard time with that. She's like, babe, I will eat it. I love it. But she was a swimmer her whole life and a kayaker. And she had some near drowning experiences. And so for her, the idea of drowning a mammal just is really hard for her.
It's emotion. It's something you got to approach it with what it is. It is what it is.
I just keep going like, well, just think they spend most of their life underwater. So at least it's not like you getting yanked under all of a sudden. They retreat to the water, So,
it is a productive way to harvest beaver.
Yeah.
And I don't do dry land trapping. Well, first off, because it is hard. Like trapping coyotes is hard.
Yeah.
No matter what anybody tells you, because it's got to be so tight.
Yeah.
Have you done any trapping?
No, we took a class, but I haven't.
Did they talk about pan tension and stuff?
Yep,
Yeah.
they did. And they talked a lot about how difficult coyotes are to...
Well, that's so key with coyotes, because if a coyote, you got to have it just right. And
Yeah.
it's got to be tight, because if they feel that, forget it.
Yeah.
And they're so clever.
Yeah.
And I don't really trap anything I don't eat. I don't trap for the
Right.
fur.
Yeah.
Though coincidentally, I do keep the beaver fur because I eat the meat.
Yeah.
But I keep all my bear hides.
Yeah.
But I just think I can't imagine not.
Right.
Right.
Throwing anything away.
Yeah.
But trapping is huge. It's as important, probably more important than hunting, actually.
Yeah. From a survival and perspective.
If you got to live off the land.
Yeah, right.
And I hate to. I know that sounds parasitic, but live.
I get you. I
What
understand
I'm
what you mean.
I just try to.
You got to be careful these days.
You do.
It's all very sketchy territory. It's all traps. Ed, tell people where they find your stuff, man.
My stuff?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
Instagram,
Oh, I've got
YouTube.
I've got a YouTube channel, Working Class Woodsman.
I love the name, by the way.
Me too.
I'm so hooked. And you have like that logo. It's so cool on Instagram, because that's how I remember the first time I saw it. I was like, "What's this?" It's like this logo that you have. It's like a badge.
Yep.
Right? It's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I do Instagram. I've been on Instagram, I guess, 4 years or 5 years now. YouTube about 6. It's been a very learning experience. It's been fun. I've learned a lot about people.
Yeah.
But yeah, YouTube and Instagram is where you find my goings on.
Yeah.
And I love to write. I've actually got a couple of fiction novels in the works, but on my website you can read some of that.
Oh,
But
cool.
I do a little
What's the website?
workingclasswoodsman.com. Yeah.
Cool.
But I haven't done a video in a year and a half.
I don't blame you.
It's tough. I love doing it, but you deal with I'm sure you run into this. As soon as you say one thing, it's relentless. That's why I'm very careful about what I say, because I've been haunted so long about, I think this is what I would have done. And my answer to a lot of people is, no, what you need to do is, like, okay, I'm going to go out and shoot a deer and get it on camera and then field dress it. Like, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I usually do is like, no, what you need to do is go buy a camera.
Yeah.
Go do this
yourself.
and do your own, and show me how you would do it. Don't sit there and armchair quarterback.
Yeah.
And but I'm past that.
Yeah.
I'm over that. But it did take a lot. It took
It's
a lot
quite
of
a learning
energy.
experience, though, right?
It is.
Especially because at first you
is.
don't realize that people like yourself who are creators don't comment like that on people's YouTubes. or Instagrams or whatever,
No.
I would never waste my energy talking to somebody like that deconstructively. The people who are doing that, like if you could see them, you would be like, oh, I don't care what that person says. But
true.
it feels like they might be somebody who has a legitimate point of view.
And a lot of them are very well spoken.
Yeah.
And very talented at cutting, at finding holes in stuff.
Yeah.
So you take that with a grain of salt, and everybody says, "Oh, just let it roll off your back." But after tens and hundreds, and it's like it just does get to you.
Yeah.
And after a while, you just kind of shut down, and then it goes away. But making videos is fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure you sounds like you do quite a bit of that.
Yeah. It's great.
I enjoyed it. I do. Yeah. I'll get back into it at some point.
Making content's great. It's just you can't get hemmed down in the comment stuff, and you can't. Otherwise, it'll just suck the life out of it.
And many times I've disabled the comments on a couple of videos, but I hate to do that because I do want to know.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I want to know how people feel.
Yeah, and it's nice when it's interactive. But.
Yeah, but I was also at the point where it's like 400 videos.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've done everything. It's like I'm trying to think. It's like 3 years of doing maple syrup.
Yeah.
3 years of smelting, 4 years of ice fishing. It's like I was just trying to think and I've done a lot of cooking videos, wild game cooking videos, and just the easy stuff like venison and beans and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've done clamming videos, oystering videos,
Oh, cool.
because I do clamming and oystering.
I've never done oystering, man. I got to talk to you about
It's
that
fun.
at some point.
Yeah, it's fun. I've never not got my limit. Half a
Really?
bushel every time. Yep.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
I'll be tagging along, I hope, sometime.
No, it's fun. It's great. I love oysters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you.
Yeah.
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 Great.
I definitely love them.
One at a time.
Yeah.
But so I get to the point where it's like, what am I gonna do next that's interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Because I just feel that it's like I'd like to do something different. I just don't know what.
Fiction sounds like a fun place to put some energy. I like that idea too.
Oh yeah, well that's why I love to write because I can go to Africa hunting Cape buffalo, write about it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But the funny thing in writing, I'm sure like if people know if it's made up or if it comes from real life experience.
Right,
and
right.
if I wrote a story about hunting in Africa, it would be made up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and I've never been to Africa, but that's the stuff I like to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, man. Well, I want to cook you some tacos.
I'm really excited about that.
I'm
Me too.
ready to eat. How long have we been going?
2 hours, 17 minutes.
That's not bad. That's
great.
It takes me that long to stop talking.
Man, you're
That's an awesome conversation.
You're a
man.
pleasure to talk to you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming
it's-
down here, and I hope we can
It's been a pleasure.
keep the cross-pollination going.
Yeah,
It's been great.
Yeah, no, we got to, and Grant, it was. I feel like you didn't get to say much, but
I'm a good listener.
Well, it's actually, you've got him to talk more than most any podcast that we've done. I mean,
yeah.
nobody ever asks you questions.
Oh, you just warmed my heart.
Grant's a great guy to talk to, but he does like to hang out in the background for this kind of thing. So,
Observe. Yeah.
plays
Well,
the-
you're the
plays the
creator.
bass.
You're a creator
Right.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
part
yeah.
of it.
I mean, this would not be the same without
No, it's
him.
been fun. I really appreciate you guys having me up here.
Cool, man. Well, let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the WildFed podcast. You can help us grow the show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review. It ensures better rankings and more advertiser interest, which translates directly into better shows, more awesome guests, and a constant stream of fresh, new content. Have a question you'd like answered on the show, or a hunting, fishing, or foraging trip you'd like to host us on? Email us at info@wild-fed.com. And be sure to visit our website, wild-fed.com, to check out the WildFed video show and store. WildFed. Food is all around you.